Yes, sir. Tuesday night, 8 p.m. Sports with Rich. We're back on the SLG network. A little twist for tonight's show. My co-host Jason Schott here today. I gave Rich the night off, the week off. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Thursday, here we come. But I gave Rich the day off. He's back next week, and here we go from there. But packed sports week as always. The World Cup just starting up. Baseball free agency right here. NBA, here we go. Jason Schott, how you doing from Brooklyn Digest?
Pretty good. How are you, Robert?
I'm doing well, doing well. Energetic as always, you know that, but no
Oh, yeah.
coffee tonight. I don't need the coffee tonight, but everything's going well. How's everything going your way?
Very good. Very good. Watching tons of soccer.
Yeah, for sure. It's a little twist up, but
Yep.
soccer's always the way to go here every 4 years. So I'm very excited for it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, today was definitely a big one. So we'll definitely dive into that later.
For sure. We got a big announcement going into last week's show. We heard about it at the end. New York City officials and NYCFC came to an agreement on a new stadium built right outside of Citi Field across the street, Willets Point. Everyone knows it around New York region as Willets Point. That's the train stop. 25,000 seats for the capacity, totaling 780 million, fully financed by the football club. Massive achievement for New York City, massive achievement for NYCFC.
It is. I mean, they've been waiting for this. I mean, it's hard to believe this team, they started playing in 2015. It was announced in 2013 they were going to be created. So it's basically the creation was almost 10 years ago. So this has been almost a decade waiting for this. And then the thing I find mystifying, though, is that they're not going to open this thing till 2027. I mean, part of the reason I got this stadium was the housing and the other stuff tied to it. So, I mean, it's a good deal for the city, and the city's only investment is they're going to basically work on the approaches and things like that. I think also clean up the auto graveyards, which I think the Mets will be dancing with that. They've tried getting rid of those things for years. So, I mean, it's a win-win for everybody.
I'm glad you brought that up because economically, for sure, there's so much opportunities in this project. 2,500 units of 100% affordable housing, 650 student public school, over 16,000 total jobs from construction and operations, 250 room hotel, and 115,000 square feet of open space. For you New Yorkers out there, that open space means a lot to you.
I mean, they looked everywhere. I mean, they were thinking of building it like near Yankee Stadium, which makes sense because the Yankees own half the team with Manchester City of the English Premier League, and they were looking to build at 153rd Street. That one came close, but I think the pandemic killed that idea off. And then this one, basically, largely this idea that they were going to build in the city died down, and then this really came out of nowhere last week.
Yeah, it was shocking news out of nowhere. When I got the notification, I was really shocked. But on an NYCFC standpoint, they're a winning franchise, 15 plus wins out of the 5 seasons out of the 8, I believe, going back to 2013, like you said, 117 franchise wins. New York City and those sports fans out there got to tune into soccer much more, and they will with the next topic we're talking about. But NYCFC, an ultimate win.
Yeah, and I mean, think of the Buffalo Bills football stadium. What a fiasco that is! The governor taking $900 million of public funds, which I believe, if you connect the dots, probably was COVID relief, quote unquote, for that stadium. So what a difference that this really, it's just, okay, the city will invest in upgrading roads or wherever the hell it is. And this is how it should be. These teams are owned by massively rich people that can afford to build their own stadiums. I mean, Madison Square Garden did a top-to-bottom renovation. James Dolan didn't take a penny of city money, yet every time these politicians want a cheap headline, they're talking about, oh, we should get rid of the Garden and rebuild Penn Station. Like, be grateful that that building, he renovated the damn place and you didn't pay a penny for it,
Yeah, that's a massive achievement out of Dolan, and many officials don't even realize it. And for NYCFC to do this, 780 million, and you wouldn't name them out of the 7 franchises for New York sports, but they should be in there for the teams you're zoned in on every day.
It'll help too. You have people plan a day like, hey, let's go see the Mets in the afternoon. Let's go see NYCFC a 4 or 5, 7 o'clock tip-off,
Exactly, because when I was in Philadelphia with Rich in August, I'm like, just imagine going to a Phillies game at 1 o'clock and then an Eagles game at 4 o'clock or 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
That's a hell of a sports day. And now New Yorkers can experience that at Citi Field and NYCFC Stadium.
Exactly, and it's good to replicate kind of like what Philly has, on this level. And who knows, maybe that's a template for the future.
For sure. And for the future in 2026, we'll be getting this in the U.S. But the FIFA World Cup started on this past Sunday, Ecuador versus Qatar to start it off. Well, I wanted to start off with Qatar's
Sure.
controversies with the World Cup. First off, no alcohol allowed in the stadium for any fans, none sold in the stadium. I can't imagine going to a soccer game just staying sober, especially for an event that's only happens once every 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it begs the question. I was telling this to a British guy earlier that I know at my local bar, and I said, forgive me, and even he laughed when I said, I don't know what's more scary, a sober British soccer fan or a drunk one. I mean, you might see an even worse riot at this World Cup because without the beer.
No, exactly, and people traveled across the whole world just to get to this one place to cheer on their team, and obviously, this is something that everyone's tuned into, everyone's talking about, but just the conditions to begin with.
Yeah.
$220 billion were spent just to get this thing going, construction costs, operations, and all that. Over 6,000 workers were estimated to pass away throughout the process. That's just terrible news. And that's the news they're giving us. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You can't trust the Qatar government. You can't trust FIFA. I mean, this was guided on bribery. 7 years ago, this came out. This should have been moved, but I mean, FIFA is just a despicable organization. I mean, even the head Gianni Infantino was like about the beer controversy, because I mean, it's just a complete embarrassment to have in a country like this, especially when you look at the nature of the world right now. What's going on, a lot of shifts and things like that. And just generally for him to make the contemptuous comment like, oh, people can go without beer for 3 hours. No, it's more larger point that where you're holding this thing, and it's not right.
No, it's totally not right. And since you mentioned the beer, the next partnership with beer is gambling, and the betting odds, all the gambling stuff coming out of the World Cup is insane to start off with. Brazil was the favorite coming in, Argentina's second right there, France the third favorite. To start off, France has many injured players going into this World Cup. They caught the W today, and it was a massive win in, I believe, group stage. I forget the group stage, but they're one of the massive favorites.
It is still a group stage, yeah.
And other than that, England was in that picture. They won 6-2 over Iran, and they versus USA on Friday. USA drew against Wales yesterday. So there's so many games going on. And just to start off, I don't watch much soccer to begin with. I'm no guru, but I'm here for it the next month.
Oh yeah, I mean it's fun because there's not much going on during the day. That is one difference where when it would be the summer and basically be like 1 o'clock, it's like, oh, the Yankees are playing Boston. Who can watch this? So in a way, they have the fields to themselves during the day. I mean, it is still goofy though because I can just see when I go out watch a game, you don't have the crowds like in the summer because generally summer a lot of people are off, and I mean winter it's like everybody's work, school, whatever. Nobody can sit down and really watch these. I mean, how many people really saw Argentina lose to Saudi Arabia this morning at 5 a.m.? Like if you were up that time, you probably were on your way to work, So
exactly, you were getting the notifications on your phone at the most.
Exactly.
And for the final game to be at 2:00, that's the end of the day. Honestly, that's when people are finally leaving work. The end of the game is at around 4:30. It's just that's a massive failure on Qatar's part, but that's what they signed up for, honestly.
And we're lucky they even have a game that late. That's purely time for Europe, as they always do, because that's Europe prime time. And that's 10 or 11 p.m. local time over there. So, I mean, that says it all. You do imagine going game 11 p.m.?
Sheesh. It must be a toll on the players.
Oh, yeah. Definitely body clocks thrown off, and,
Speaking of the players,
to do there, so
that's true. There's nothing else to do except play soccer, and one of the greatest soccer players to ever live, and for me to watch, is Lionel Messi out of Argentina, 35-year-old Barcelona legend. He was the runner-up in the 2014 World Cup over Brazil, and beat Brazil 1-0 in the 2021 Copa America final. So there's a lot of animosity and rivalry building up in those two. But Argentina, the big upset this morning to Saudi Arabia. Final score was 2-1, I believe.
2-1. He scored in the 10th, and then they got 2 goals around like the 40th and 45th minute. It looked like 2 very quick ones, and Yeah, just stunning. I don't know that roster all that well, but I have a feeling there's not many other good players on that team except him, And
Yeah,
that's what
I was gonna.
Cristiano Ronaldo has faced this whole time with Portugal and why they've never won a World Cup. He's never won a World Cup either. You look at those Portugal rosters, it's like they got nobody else on that team.
Exactly. One man army. The only players
Yeah,
I can name
exactly.
is Christian Romero. That's the only guy on Argentina I
Mhm.
can name other than Messi.
Yeah.
But on the other side, Brazil, another massive favorite. They face Serbia on Thursday in the Group G playing stage, and their other massive player is no other than Neymar, 30 year
Yeah.
old, 6 goals in the World Cup for his career, and every World Cup he's just trending on Twitter, trending on Instagram, you name it, he's a highlight reel.
Yeah, I mean they're still looking to get over that one in their home country, and they lost 7-0 to Germany. To my Germans in 2014. So I mean they're in there. I mean France, that was a massive statement today. They fell behind early to Australia, and then once they got a goal, they were all over the place. You forgot they even have had these injuries. I mean they look good, and then you look. Yeah, Argentina definitely took a step back. I just don't know. The U.S. has definitely shown a lot more. They were good yesterday, but not. It didn't look like any other. Didn't look like any different than any other U.S. year. Even though the U.S. team, we've now achieved a new level, in that a lot of these guys are known because they play in England, they play in Germany, they play in Italy. They're all over the world. It's not like where Philip Bondi and the Daily News brought this out. You go back to like the last time they were in the World Cup in 2014. 80% of the team played in the MLS. Now it's like 80% are playing internationally. It's completely flipped. So, but at the same time, these guys are not used to playing with each other. And also having it mid-season, these guys are exhausted because they played 3 months of their club leagues already.
Exactly. All these guys are exhausted. They're it's a mental toll, honestly, throughout the whole year, playing throughout all these leagues, these tournament plays, and now you add on the World Cup in a random month like November.
Yeah.
Whew, too much on the players.
When the World Cup's in the summer, the only leagues that are affected are the U.S. and I believe Mexico. Although I think Mexico has it set up, they have their season split up anyway. Like I think they take July off anyway, so nobody's really affected. Whereas this one, the only league not affected is the U.S. because we just finished. But any U.S. player that played MLS, they've already played 6 or 7 months of soccer, so they're gassed from that too.
Sheesh. Sports with Rich Tuesday night, as always on the SLG network, starting at 8 p.m. Whole bunch of sports news going on, and we're going to talk all about it. Jason Schott here from Brooklyn Digest, Robert Rizzo from Latino Sports. You can follow me on Twitter, RobertRiz994, Instagram RRizzo4, and Facebook Robert Rizzo. Where can they catch all you on social media, Jason?
I'm on Instagram at BK Digest.
Awesome. So there we go. And we're going to switch it over to American football now. A lot of highlights from week 11 of the NFL. A bunch from Sunday. Obviously, it started on Thursday, but highlights are starting with 8 games decided by 8 points or less. Cowboys scoring 40 points against the Vikings. 3 teams scored 3 points. That's soccer right there.
Yeah,
3
exactly.
points. Come on. The MVPs for me was Marcus Jones from New England for the game-winning punt return at the end against the Jets. Mahomes' game-winning drive on Sunday Night Football. Dan Campbell leading the Detroit Lions to a 3-game winning streak. And Devontae Adams for Las Vegas Raiders, game-winning touchdown at the end.
Yeah, I mean, all you need to know, I think my biggest takeaway from Sunday was CBS, Dallas, Minnesota. They somehow got that game out of Fox. And then when it was 37-3 midway through the third, James Brown pops in. Oh, by the way, we're going to go to Pittsburgh, Cincinnati.
I've never seen that before.
Never seen that. Jumping out of a Cowboys game. I mean, and it was a complete and utter slaughter. And nobody's believed in the Vikings all year. I mean, the Vikings, they finally got attention when they won in Buffalo, that miracle last week. And I remember watching that game thinking, they're 7-1, they get no attention. Well, they proved it against Dallas where they get no attention. And, I mean, then Thanksgiving, sorry to jump the gun, but they get New England on Thursday night. That's going to be a fascinating game. That New England defense, as old Jet fans know, that New England D's back to what they were the first 10, 11 games of last season. They're superb.
For sure, and they have momentum going with that big win over the Jets. They only gave up 3 points, massive achievement for the New England defense, and that's going to be a big matchup on Thursday night, Vikings-Patriots. We'll get to that with our picks in the second hour of our program. Before Thursday night, the massive news for NFL football, NFL was honestly the Buffalo snow. It was
Yeah.
insane. Over 80 inches were estimated in some parts of Buffalo. Fans helped shovel the players' driveways out just to get to the airport, and they were able to get to Detroit. We said that last week on the show. They moved the game from Buffalo to Detroit because it was so much massive issues going through the transportation, the stadium issues. I just can't imagine. And the Bills ended up with the win 31-23 over the Browns. Josh Allen looked like Josh Allen, 18 of 27, 197 passing yards with 1 touchdown. Bills are 7-3 on the season.
Yeah, that was that was kind of reset game they needed. I mean, they definitely, the offense was clicking. Started slow. They didn't really hit their groove to like the middle second quarter. And good on the NFL to put that game in Detroit because they're playing at Detroit on Thursday at 12:30 on Thanksgiving. And the thing I was saying about it, if they couldn't get them out of Buffalo in time, and they had to move that game back, they would have had to move the Thanksgiving day game back also.
That would have been a huge problem for NFL.
Can you imagine if they had to push that one back to like Friday and they're going against like all the college games? So once it reminds me of the 1 o'clock Sunday, it was like, oh, thank God we don't have to touch Thursday now.
It reminds us of the COVID season where we had some Tuesday night games, Wednesday night games. We don't care. We'll play.
Yeah, exactly. Monday at 5 p.m. before the normal Monday night football was great, you know. Rare highlight of that time.
since you said it, I'll lead it to my next point. What wasn't great was the performance out of Zach Wilson out in New England against the Patriots. 9 of 22 with 77 passing yards, sacked 4 times, 26 rushing yards. What was worse than his performance was his post-game interview. He put no accountability on himself. For a second-year quarterback in New York, you got to take accountability and leadership for yourself. Two positive offensive yards in the second half, I think, overall. Just atrocious on all assets offensively. And for the Jets, that defense, they sparked every single time they needed to. Zach Wilson has to step it up.
Yeah, I mean, that defense, anybody can win with that defense. I mean, look what Mark Sanchez achieved with the Rex Ryan defenses years ago. It's not hard. I mean, the thing about that game was New England left the door open because Nick Folk missed 2 field goals. I mean, it was just miserable weather up there. It was a windy conditions, the whole 9 yards. I mean, and the kid, you're right. And basically, he really shot himself in the foot with his post game where he was basically blaming the defense. Like, excuse me, what are they supposed to pitch a shutout for you? You know? And I think the contrast, it's instructive when they played New England. It's amazing how much Mac Jones, how much flack he takes up there. They are like I read the Boston Globe. They're very tough on the Patriots. They really are.
For sure.
And they're tough on Mac Jones. I mean, they were ready to ditch him for Bailey Zappi. Remember him?
Ooh.
But Mac Jones is a national championship winning quarterback from Alabama, who they picked 15th in last year's draft. The same draft the Jets picked Zach Wilson out of BYU. This kid's not New York City. This kid never played a big game in his life before he showed up here. He's not ready for it. And I think Robert Saleh, the Jets coach, he might have gone to a backup during the game, but he might have been under orders, or he might have also, as a point of pride, they might have talked about, like, we know we could have taken the New England quarterback. We took this guy instead with the 2nd pick in the draft. And, this is a point of pride. We're going to leave him out there. And then yesterday, and the thing is, I don't think NFL teams talk much the day after losses. So the fact that it came out that he said everything's on the table for next Sunday against the Bears, that says a lot,
No, it definitely says a lot for your second-year quarterback, 2nd overall pick. And against a Bears defense that's atrocious to begin with, their best bet is to start Zach Wilson, let him get the reps, let him look good in front of MetLife Stadium and the Jet fans, give them some hope, and see how it goes from there. And if he's slacking in the first half, second half against the Bears, that's time to put Mike White or Joe Flacco in.
Yeah. I mean, the Bears, the best game the Bears have played all year, and it was ironically the low point for New England, was that Monday night when they ran the Patriots out.
Yeah, the Bears only play good in the rain, honestly.
AFC East.
On the other side of New York, the Giants caught an L against the Detroit Lions, 31-18. Daniel Jones was 27 of 44 with 341 passing, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He entered this game with 5 games straight, no interceptions, and they finally got to him. Detroit's defense. Giants are 7-3. Big game on Thursday night against Dallas.
Massive, massive game. I mean, this Sunday was an absolute nightmare for the Giants because they got run out by Detroit. But while that game was going on, it looked like Philly was going to lose to Indianapolis. And then, oh, lo and behold, they pull it out. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. And then we know what Dallas did to Minnesota. So, I mean, this was a night. And then Washington's in the race now too. Washington's 6-5. So, the Giants basically saw their 3 division competitors all pick up games on them, and they still have 2 games with Washington and 2 with Philadelphia. So, I mean, you look at that 7-3 record, favorable schedule so far, and they got exposed. And and not just Daniel Jones, that defense got exposed. Every one of those touchdowns, the running from the 4-yard line, running back just walk right in.
And going into it, they knew that because Detroit scores 30 a game, but they give up basically 35 a game, and that's why their record shows for it. And I'm glad you brought up the Giants' schedule. They enter a 4-week stretch against NFC East opponents, 2 being the Commanders, 1 the Cowboys, and then you get Philly at the end. That's a tough stretch right there. And I know they're 7-3, but we can come out of this and they're 7-7.
Yeah, that's very possible. I mean, a playoff spot, it didn't look like it would be a question mark. And also Washington, you look at the power of a quarterback. Once they restored Taylor Heineke, that team's been unbeatable. Now, I mean, Taylor Heineke won them that division 2 years ago and was competitive against Tampa Bay in the 1 playoff game they had. So, I don't know. This season could turn a heartbeat for the Giants.
Definitely. There's a lot of good football being played in the NFC East, and it's being showed for it. Eagles top of the charts with everything. Cowboys 40-point game. Yeah. Commanders and Giants have a lot to show for in the next 8 weeks or so.
Exactly. And the Giants, the one thing I just hope, that game was horrible Sunday. Don't bring Beckham back. Don't. That would totally throw. You may. Let's put it this way: a loss like that shows you may throw away what you've already achieved with Brian Dable this year. That would really throw it all away.
Yeah. No, that's. Oof. I don't think Odell's going to sign with the Giants to begin with.
Right.
But if he does, it's just a huge storyline in New York, and it's an unnecessary storyline, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, to the press, it's probably been a dull year that they've both been winning. But boy, you look.
Oh yeah.
Get quarterback controversy, and then you get Beckham back. Oh, here we go.
You mentioned
fun 6 weeks.
You mentioned the Detroit running game, how they were just getting basically anything they wanted out of the Giants defense. It was because of the star-studded talent out of Jamal Adams, 17 rushes, 64 yards, but with 3 touchdowns, career high for him on the season. He's 27 years old, out of BYU, 12 touchdowns on the season, 668 yards total. He's leading the Lions to where they are right now. And I know it's not a great record, 4-6, 3-game winning streak. That's the first time since, I believe, 2017.
Trend is your friend. And I mean, 4-6, they're in the hunt. I mean, you can't discount them. And I think people have to get used to, when you're dealing with 17 games, they have 7 left. If they go 6-1, that's a 10-win season.
Especially in the NFC North, anything gives this season.
Yeah, especially you can see the Vikings fall off the page now,
Sports with Rich here on the SLG Network, Tuesday night, as always. Record-breaking day on Sunday for Cordell Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons. 103-yard return in the second quarter against the Chicago Bears. 9th career kickoff return that marks NFL record, beating out Devin Hester of the Chicago Bears. And just like that, he's a dual threat 31-year-old, and he does it all. Run the ball, kick returns, and receives the ball.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely the most entertaining 1 o'clock game, just because actually had some scoring to it,
There was a lot of action going back and forth, and I said it before, I've never seen a total for the Bears at 48.5 going into it. And they covered. It was, I believe, it was at 51. So the Bears keep playing their Bears football. Hopefully Justin Fields stays healthy against the Jets. We'll talk about that in the second hour. We're going to keep going with the football. Sunday Night Football, Travis Kelce had the game-winning touchdown against the Los Angeles Chargers. 33rd game with 100-plus receiving yards. That beats Rob Gronkowski for the most all-time by NFL tight end.
Oh, no. I love Gronk. No.
I know. It seems like every time Kelce gets on the field, he's beating Gronk's records. And that's just, it's thrown to a throne, honestly. It's just passing generation to generation.
Yeah, I mean, all you need to know about Gronk, is how Tampa Bay's been without him. I hate to say what he wants, but I just have to know. I mean, it basically took him 6-7 games to find his replacement, and now that they have, they won. They beat the Rams and they beat the Seahawks over in Germany. And Kelsey, same thing. Patrick Mahomes would not be as good without him. I mean, that winning touchdown. 20 seconds left. It was like so effortless. He gets open. He's impossible to cover. The thing you'd like to see him get another ring. It's amazing they've only won one because this is now like their 5th year of being an elite team.
And every time I'm watching Mahomes in the 4th quarter, I'm just like, you left him too much time. It was a minute 46 that time, and he scored with 30 seconds to go. So you do the math. He scored in a minute 15 and made it look easy.
Chargers incredibly overrated.
Yeah.
Very tough year for football out there because the Rams are basically done 3-7.
All the LA teams basically struggling right now for football. Speaking of the LA teams, one is in the NFC West, and their rivals played yesterday on Monday Night Football, 49ers versus the Cardinals in Mexico City. It was not an entertaining game points-wise. It was a blowout to begin with.
Yeah.
Cardinals show no effort on both sides of the ball, missing tackles, not scoring, not completing, just lack of awareness on both sides. What are your thoughts on NFL games being in Mexico City? I believe that was the 5th regular season game and over 10 games in Mexico City totally.
Oh, yeah. Going back to the 90s, they'd play at least the Cowboys would play there it felt like every year. They'd have Monday Night Football around Christmas down there. It's great. It's a great market. The Rams last year when they won the Super Bowl, they brought the trophy down to multiple cities in Mexico because they're aware how many Hispanics are fans of their team. So it's a great market. The NFL is doing an excellent job of tapping all their markets, be it Mexico, London. They've gone for 15 years, and then they finally go to Germany. When I was at Fox Business briefly a few years ago, I did a piece about the NFL interest in Germany. They were pushing for the game for years by that point, and then they finally get it. Who do they send over? Tom Brady. What a way to really just reward them, basically almost like an apology. We probably should have come here a lot sooner. So that part of the NFL gets a lot wrong, but this is one they've nailed it.
For sure. I think they nailed it. It's a win for the fans, win for the viewing fans at home, and they're going to keep doing it year on year.
Yeah. Exactly. And going back to the game, San Francisco, how can you not like San Francisco? That team's unbelievable right now.
On all sides of the ball, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Bosa leading the charge on the other side. They're a scary team, especially in the second half of the season.
And the most underappreciated QB, and basically, I'm going to say the same thing about their quarterback situation like it did the Jets. They drafted Trey Lance out of North Dakota State. Got hurt or couldn't play. Then they go to Jimmy G. Last year, they go to the NFC title. Then this year, we're all in on Trey Lance. Trey Lance. Well, guess what? He couldn't play. And here's Jimmy G again. And, maybe they'll finally get in their heads. Just stick with this guy. The guy wins games. The numbers may not be sexy, but he wins. Enough's enough.
That's what the NFL is about. Just getting the W's. And they paid him for that. That insurance plan is showing gratefully now. It was $16 million, and most fans were like, $16 million for Jimmy Garoppolo? I'd take it right now.
How would he look in a Jets uniform?
Exactly. They get the win in New England.
Passed on the guy. Jeez.
They definitely get the win in New England for sure.
Yeah.
I just wanted to take an overall look at the playoff picture. I know there's so many weeks to go, and this is all going to change. Right now, the Eagles are leading the charge in the NFC, and the Chiefs are leading the charge in the AFC. For the AFC, there's 5 teams with 7 or more wins. Pats and Bengals are set at 6-4. That leads the picture for them. Jets, Chargers, and Colts are right outside. NFC side, Eagles, like I said, are leading the charge. Vikings 8-2. The wild card teams are 19-10 combined. I expect a lot of different scenarios going on week by week for the NFC.
I agree. I think you can see who's a sure thing. Probably Philadelphia, probably Dallas. But yeah, the wild card's going to be wild. It's going to be crazy. Will Seattle be able to stick around? The Giants, it's because you had a lot of surprise in the NFC. The Giants definitely are a surprise. Seattle's been a massive surprise. Will Geno Smith be able to carry them through December? Big question.
Big question for sure. And as we spoke about the 49ers, Seattle right there, that's a big matchup.
Oh, yeah, that's a nasty rivalry.
For sure. On the other side, after the commercial, we have our special guest interview set for Greg Harinya,
Gregory,
former NBA writer, author of The 5-Year Plan, The Nets Journey from New Jersey to Brooklyn, and he's a guest on Radio Kingston, and we're looking forward to it. He'll be on the other side with us right after the break.
Doing bad, they gon' love you. Yeah. Doing good, they gon' hate you. Yeah. Look down on your come up, but to the hustle, stay faithful. Big goals by the rate full. Drip everywhere, that's wasteful. Accent color, that's tasteful. We front and center at the tape. Got 3-5 in my blunt. Yeah. 4 extra mud in my cup. Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I was out of luck. Yeah, now my money up. Yeah, they feeling that. They feeling that. They feeling that. Show her in a truck, then throw it in the guts. Yeah, she feeling that. She feeling that. She feeling that. Niggas talking tough, yeah, till we pulling up. Now he feeling that. He feeling that. He feeling that. Save me a gold casket. My life been tragic. Good gas and blunts pass. Blow out a nigga head gaskets. Fuck boys, don't need them. Yo bitch crazy, better keep her. Yo niggas high when it's time to ride, but I bet that bitch start squeezing. Smoke sessions in the evening. Private chef and we eat it. It's a long way from voyeur to 4 years in Lamborghinis. Move different, can't see me. Only pictures ain't on TV. Tribe meetings and vibe readings. These space race like E.T. We had roaches in the kitchen. Now it's rooms in the villa. Took the cards I was dealt, flipped them. I'm the one who do the dealing. Did so much of my own, baby, I don't give a fuck about feelings. Everybody got a lot to say, but ain't nobody came with it. Fuck it, I spend it. Had it, I lent it. Trusted some niggas, now I regret it. I can forgive it, never forget it. Niggas still out there, I ain't gon' get it. Yeah, this is it, I can't slow up. Niggas muddy from the pole up. Big sauce like a cold cut, you either hoe up or you gon' blow up. Got 3-5 in my blunt, 4 extra mud in my cup. Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I was out of luck, yeah, now my money up. Yeah, they feeling that. They feeling that. They feeling that. Show her in a truck, then throw it in the guts. Yeah, she feeling that. She feeling that. She feeling that. Niggas talking tough, yeah, till we pulling up. Now he feeling that. He feeling that. He feeling that. Where the ghost mean power, you a star, Omari Hardwick. Seen a lot of hardships, we was taking long trips. Talking through the glass, gotta medicate with strong hits of ganja. Gotta watch how people move around you. My brother got sittings cause of snitch. Niggas dying over bitches. Niggas lie like it's religion. If you been dying, you feel me. Gotta keep applying pressure. Double up, that boy can stretch it. Good credit or no credit, they need it, go get it. Lil' baby, this is me. What you get is what you see. And you best believe we wore red. Got 3-5 in my blunt. 4 extra mud in my cup. Yeah, I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I'm feeling that. I was out of luck. Yeah, now my money up. Yeah, they feeling that. They feeling that. They feeling that. Show her in a truck, then throw it in the guts. Yeah, she feeling that. She feeling that. She feeling that. Niggas talking tough. Yeah, till we pulling up. Now he feeling that. He feeling that. He feeling that.
Back Sports with Rich Tuesday night, starting time 8 o'clock as always. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel, SLG Network. It is much appreciated. It does more than you think. We're here as always Tuesday night with Jason Schott, Robert Rizzo from Latino Sports. We gave Rich Mancuso the week off. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I felt like Rich needed a week off. He's working too hard all the time. Check out his content.
Rich is doing his Emerald Gusty impersonation right now, I believe.
Speaking of Rich, as always, check out his daily content on NY Sports Day and Latino Sports. He just published an article on Monday about the baseball elections and the Hall of Fame going on. Definitely tune into that. Tune into your stuff, Jason. Everyone watching right now, read on Brooklyn Digest for sure.
Yeah, that was a great piece by Rich, and my most recent piece, we're going to go get to baseball later, was about the Yankee offseason. More of the same.
For sure. We'll get to that in the second hour, but here we are now. Guest interview, Greg Harinya, former NBA writer, author of The 5-Year Plan, The Nets Journey from Jersey to Brooklyn, also a guest on Radio Kingston majority of the time. Let's start off. Greg, how are you doing?
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Doing well.
Oh, my pleasure, Greg. Good seeing you.
Likewise.
Pleasure to meet you. Hope to meet you in person soon. But let's start it off. Your book, I started it, The 5-Year Plan. Tell us and the viewers watching now, what made you bring this story to light and the journey of how New Jersey Nets got to Brooklyn?
Well, when they were in New Jersey the last couple of years, the whole journey, as it were, was about them going to Brooklyn. So the last 2-3 years, it wasn't even a secret. They were preparing everything for Brooklyn. And so those years were kind of like a stepping stone to really put this championship team in place when they got to Barclays Center. So I didn't take much from them being lousy in New Jersey, but then once they got to Brooklyn, they started spending big time money on a lot of big name players. They added Darren Williams when they were still in New Jersey, but I mean, again, that was to bring a star name to the team while they were going to Brooklyn. And it's funny because people forget that at that point in time, Chris Paul and Darren Williams were widely regarded as the two best point guards in the league. And it's funny to see Chris Paul still playing well. I mean, he's hurt now, but I mean, still leading the Suns. And then you got Darren Williams, who's been out of the league for years. So it's just amazing how that turned. So when they got to when they left New Jersey, went to Brooklyn, obviously it was all about the big names, and everybody thought they were going to be this juggernaut, and it didn't really turn out that way. And so I guess it was the 2013-14 season where they started out, I want to say 10-19. And I just looked at it and I'm like, this was nothing like what they were promising people. Like this, you had Jason Kidd making excuses in the post game, like you can't judge us until we're whole. But keep in mind, they also added a bunch of guys who are in their mid to late 30s. I mean, Paul Pierce at the time was probably 35, 36. Garnett, they pretty much had to ease through the entire season, quick bursts, nights off, that whole thing. So, I mean, they were an old team. And I just looked at the way Jason Kidd was answering questions, and I'm like, they're getting blown out every night here. Now, they ultimately turned it around, but I mean, turning it around is a relative term. So, I mean, they turned it around to be competitive and in the playoffs, but they never really got to that championship level. So, I mean, when they were really stumbling in that second year in Brooklyn, when they had Garnett, Pierce, that's when I really came up with the idea that, this whole journey that they went on to leave one state, go to another one with no fan base coming with them, and then going to a place where you got a lot of Knicks fans or other fans. You have Lakers fans, you have Celtics fans, you have people who are already entrenched in an area with their own teams. So, I mean, it's not like they were bringing their fans with them. So just the whole experience of and Jason knows, we were covering games. The arena was half filled with Miami Heat fans, LeBron and Bosh and
Or when they played the Lakers, it was 75% Lakers.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, that whole experience, I'm looking around while I'm covering these games, and I'm listening to these post games and going into the locker room and seeing these guys. I'm like, this is a wild scene because they were promising people. And again, Mikhail Prokhorov, who was the owner at the time, said that he had a 5-year plan to turn this into a championship. So the wheels started turning in my head. I'm like, they don't look like they're 5 years away. So, I mean, I started putting it together, and a lot of it was based on my columns at the time, stories that I was writing in the post game, and sort of using that to lead me to the controversial areas of that time. Darren Williams is a big part of the book just because they tried to fashion so much of that basketball empire around his talent, and his talent declined really quickly. And so it was chronicling what they were doing in Jersey to get people psyched for Brooklyn. And then when they got to Brooklyn, how it kind of fell flat.
Yeah, it certainly did. And when you say the Nets, it's almost like nothing's changed. It's the same idea. It was going to get stars. They got Kevin Durant past his prime. You get a head case in Kyrie Irving. And instead of Mikhail Prokhorov, you have this loser owner, Joe Tsai. It's the same thing. It's just different pieces,
Yeah, it is really similar. And I mean, the Kyrie thing is wild just because people said when he was in Boston, they're like, oh, you're not going to be able to control this guy. Like, you're going to have problems. Like, it's going to be one thing after another. And everyone's like, oh, no, he's from Jersey. This is his hometown team. It's going to be different here. He's going to be happier here. And I mean, even today, he was tweeting stuff out that was cryptic that made you think, like, I can't even remember what it was. It was something about, like, there's no defense for the truth or something like that, something where it was, like, really cryptic, almost like, I apologized for one thing, but I want my followers to know that I'm still really in their corner. So, I mean, it's hard to believe that there's not going to be something else that comes up because he seems like a guy. And this is just from a strictly basketball perspective. You have to realize that you can believe whatever you want to believe, but your beliefs are now affecting your team. So, I mean, it's like with the vaccine, you not getting vaccinated affects your team. So,
Yep.
just strictly speaking from a basketball
Exactly.
standpoint, you being outspoken is having an impact on other guys in the locker room because now they have to answer for you. So, I mean, it's different and it's the same. I mean, it's like they're a little younger than those guys were. I think those guys were a little better pros, a little more seasoned in terms of knowing how to conduct themselves as professionals. They were just kind of shot. But you have a problem now with Durant, who's not really a leader. He's not a vocal leader. He's not going to be the person to go tell Kyrie, like, you got to get vaccinated or else, I came here because of you. You got to do what you can for me.
Exactly.
And he was never willing to really step up and do that. And I guess you can say, like, you can't tell someone else what to do, but I mean, he should have seen the writing on the wall when he decided to leave Steph Curry and pair up with Kyrie Irving. Like, he had a really plum gig in Golden State, and of all the guys you could have paired up with, you pair up with one who's got a lot of question marks around him. I mean, he's a phenomenal talent offensively when he plays. You just don't know if he's going to play. And I guess to Jason's point, you didn't know if a lot of those guys were going to play too back
That's true.
in the time when I wrote the book. Because I mean, again, Pierce and Garnett were old. Darren Williams had a lot of ankle problems, even dating back to Utah. So I mean, you really didn't know on a nightly basis what you're getting out of them either.
Yeah, and you hit on a point with the vaccine that they put up with all that with him last year, that basically he couldn't play home games until they finally convinced the city, okay, enough is enough by the playoffs. So you thought that was over, and then boom, you all of a sudden it's even worse this year,
Well, the thing with Joe Tsai, and not that I want to take this too far away from basketball, but it's like he and Sean Marks are trying to play everything down the middle. They're trying to appease everybody. So it's like they want to appear as if they're coming down hard on Kyrie, but as soon as things get tough, they cave. So last year they had lost like 11 straight games, and it's like, we're going to start, making concessions at this point in time. Like when Durant got hurt, then it's like, oh, we're going to bring him back. And then, that frustrated James Harden, and then he asked out, and there's that whole thing. And then this year, it's like we want to condemn what he's doing, and then they lose the game by 30 points to Sacramento, and then magically the next day, all of a sudden, he's met all his requirements. I mean, it's like fascinating timing with all that. It's like they lose to the 2-10 Lakers, then 2 nights later, they get blown out by Sacramento. They give 153 points, and now all of a sudden, it's a miracle. He did everything that was required of him. So, I mean, it's like they're trying to play it where they're appeasing some people who are saying he should really be taken to task for doing something, given the social climate, that's quite dangerous. And then other people saying it's not a big deal at all. And they're like, well, we want him to play because we want to win games. But at the same time, we have to appeal to those people too. So they're playing everything down the middle. And I don't know that it works just playing it down the middle.
No, definitely. And I was going to say there's so many negatives, and we're talking about it all to begin with the Brooklyn Nets. And the one positive right now in the last week or so has been Ben Simmons. He's confident. He's aware on the court, playing way more efficiently, 16 points per game last 3 games. What do you see out of Simmons this last week or so? Obviously, there's so many issues off the court, but on the court, what do you see out of him?
He's just been more aggressive. So, I mean, whether that's confidence, whether that's health, whether it's back or knee, or, he had a knee drained a couple weeks ago. So, I mean, whether it's feeling healthier or just his teammates instilling confidence with him, you can tell that what he would do early in the season is he would get the ball in the fast break. He would dribble up to the foul line or free throw line extended, and then basically plant his feet and then look around for someone to pass it to. And now he's continuing on to the basket. So it's just taking that extra dribble or two, going to the basket and collapsing the defense. So, I mean, it's really a small difference, but I mean, it's effective. And I don't even think the Nets care if he misses shots at the rim. It's just that it opens up the offense if he's attacking the rim. The interesting thing will be to see how they function if they're going to keep playing Claxton and Simmons together, because you don't have a shooter in those two, and that's putting a lot of pressure on Durant and Kyrie, because the idea is that you're going to have guys spacing the floor with Simmons, but if you're putting the Claxton out there, you can't have him go stand in the corner and shoot. So and they started tonight's game with those two. They played those two a lot the last game. So I mean, that'll be interesting to see. I mean, I think at some point they're probably going to realize that they need to split them up. But it's hard because Claxton is better at defending centers, and Simmons is really better guarding guys out on the wing. So you have a better defensive lineup with those two guys in there. But then when you get on offense, it gets kind of muddled. So, but I mean, Simmons the last couple of games looked a lot better. I mean, he's never going to be a shooter, and I mean, I think the Nets accept that. It's just make layups, make dunks, pass the ball, move, and if he's physically healthy enough to do that, he's definitely an asset. I mean, is he the player that was a 3-time All-Star in Philly? Maybe not, but I don't know that he has to be as long as he's serviceable, which he wasn't for the first 14, 15 games of the season, but the last 3 it's looked a lot better.
And he's another one they had issues with. They couldn't get him on the court last year at all. I mean, they trade James Harden. I mean, if they wanted to, they really could have taken that to the league and said, we got damaged goods from Philadelphia. But, of course, they didn't do it because we know who runs the NBA, the players. So,
Yeah, and it's also interesting because you had, like, are the Nets, like, is their esteemed performance staff, that whole group of people they have behind the scenes that designed to keep the players healthy, like, were they all misdiagnosing Simmons, like, with his back injury? So, I mean, like, I find that whole thing suspicious. Like, they released during the playoffs that Simmons was going to come back during the playoffs.
Yep.
And he didn't come back. So why didn't he come back? Was he physically unable? And then if he was physically unable, well, then why didn't the Nets training staff see that? I mean, they're so cautious with injuries. You think they would have said, hey, this guy's not physically capable of playing. Why would the Nets go out and leak that, we're planning a game 3 comeback at home in front of our fans and we're going to jazz up the fan base? And it's like, well, it seems like both parties are on different pages with that one. So I find that interesting. And you never really know with a lot of these teams who's telling the truth and whatnot. And that's universal throughout the league.
Oh, so, that's our Brooklyn Nets.
Yeah. I didn't want to single anybody out, but I mean, like, I'm sure all teams do it. It's just that we were privy to seeing one team do it. So
we were.
Yeah. So I mean, who knows what's true? I mean, they know what was going on. It's just that it wasn't handled very well with telling the public what his issues were. And then he had back surgery over the summer. And it's like, well, if he had back surgery, then he really wasn't healthy. Well, then why were you telling people that he was going to come back the first time they played Philly, which was in February? Or no. It was March, like 11th or 12th, I want to say.
Right. Yeah.
So, I mean, that's like 2 weeks after the All-Star break. Everybody was all gassed up to see him play. And he wound up not playing 3 months later and then having surgery. So it's like, what is going on here? So that was an interesting situation. So, I mean, you imagine if he's healthy, he's going to be a good asset for them. But I mean, who knows? Because I would have expected him to play most of last year after he got traded. And the fact that he didn't and then was out all summer and then started slow this year, it's just wait and see, I guess.
We're talking to Greg Harinya, former NBA writer, author of the 5-year plan, Nets journey from New Jersey to Brooklyn. My next question goes on the head coaching, the transition from Steve Nash to Jack Vaughn. So far, I believe Jack Vaughn is 6-4 as a head coach, and players are calling him natural and upbeat nature when it comes to coaching style. How do you see Jack Vaughn's impact so far? I know it's only 10 games, but so far going into it, what do you see from him?
Well, the team has certainly played a lot harder under him. I mean, maybe Steve Nash didn't have the best reputation as when he was brought in. It was thought that he was just there to be a babysitter for Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. So I think Jack Vaughn is commanding a little more respect. I mean, the team has played, it's been night and day defensively. The first 5 games with him as coach, they held an opponent under 100 points, which in today's NBA is practically unheard of. Now, obviously, the defense has slipped a little lately, but you can tell they're playing harder for him. And also some of the guys that they're putting in the lineup, I mean, like Yuta Watanabe, I mean, here's a guy who's trying to prove himself. And I mean, there's, Seth Curry's in a contract year. He's trying to prove himself. So, I mean, these guys have incentive to come out and play hard. And I think Durant was sort of relishing the fact that when Kyrie wasn't there, that all these guys were really going max effort to help him out. And, we'll see now that Kyrie's back, how that manifests itself. But I think Jacque Vaughn, at least for now, has their respect. So, I mean, again, I can't tell you what's going to happen in 2 or 3 months because they had some good times under Steve Nash, too. I mean, if you remember last year after the Christmas Day win, I mean, they had the best record in the Eastern Conference. And then who would have thought that a couple weeks later, James Harden gets traded, and then, 3 months later, they get swept. And then a month later, you got Durant asking for a trade. So, I mean, it's hard to predict what's going to happen day to day, let alone what's going to happen towards the end of the season. But, I mean, as of this second, it seems like Jacque Vaughn has their ear, and they're playing hard for him.
And to go back to the 2021 season, they were a Kevin Durant 3 from beating Milwaukee in those semifinals. So, and then they probably would have run out Atlanta in the conference finals. And who knows, Steve Nash could have been a world championship head coach if that Durant shot goes in.
Yeah, exactly right. So, I mean, you figure a size 14 versus 15 shoe could be the difference between Steve Nash being a coach here for 6 or 7 years versus everybody asking him to be fired pretty much since that game ended. So, I mean.
Oh, wait, I mixed. You're right, Greg. That was he had a 2 instead of a 3. That's what it was. He didn't miss the shot. He hit it, but it
well,
was
no,
a 2.
he did miss the shot in overtime. So, I mean, he airballed the shot in overtime, but it was the make with his foot on the line. But still, I mean, we're still slicing between very small margins that can decide somebody's fate, be it a player's, be it a coach's, and it's really, I mean, it's amazing. Like, would everybody still look at Ty Lue the same way if Kyrie doesn't hit that shot for the Cavs? I mean, I think many people regard him as a great coach, but would he still be regarded that way if he wasn't presiding over that 3-1 comeback? So, I mean, it's just amazing to see how history changes with the bounce of a ball one way or the other.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's so spot on how history changes. And Budenholzer going through the hot seat, and for them to get through that and Giannis win the championship against the Phoenix Suns, it seems like his resume is complete at 25 years old. What do you see from Giannis, and not just Giannis, but him leading Milwaukee as a whole year on year?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Budenholzer because he's the perfect example of, like, if they don't win that title, he's probably not the coach there anymore. I mean, he was basically on the hot seat where I think they were itching to get rid of him. And now you look at the way they play, and it's like they're a finely tuned machine. I mean, they've played without 3 and 4 rotation players pretty much the whole year. So, I mean, that speaks to the infrastructure they have there. It also speaks to Giannis's greatness. And I mean, look, no one's ever going to confuse him for a shooter like Steph Curry or Kevin Durant, but his ability to just physically dominate you pretty much anywhere on the floor, get to whatever spot he wants, that also opens things up for other guys. So, I mean, they basically space the floor with all shooters. And then if the defense, if they want to run that wall and collapse on him, then he's just kicking out to Pat Connaughton, Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday, whomever they have out there. And I'm interested to see how Ingles is going to play because, I mean, again, he's a great corner 3-point shooter. I mean, he's been in the 3-point contest before, and it's like now you add him to that mix, and it'll be interesting. But I mean, Giannis is every year in the conversation for not only MVP, but Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, so his impact is seen on both ends of the floor, and not only what he does in terms of his point production, but what he's doing for his teammates in terms of getting them open shots. So, I mean, it's not just how he's creating for himself, but he's creating for everybody else. I mean, you could say he's made a lot of guys a lot of money, like Bobby Portis. I mean, his name comes to mind. I mean, when he was with the Knicks, I mean, he was basically on year-to-year contracts, 1 year mid-level contracts. And now he signs a 4-year, $48 million deal. And it's like now he's got a home there, whereas before that he didn't. So, I mean, it's the right fit. A lot of guys are the right fit to play with Giannis just because he makes everyone around them so much better.
And then what was the controversy last week when they had a tough game in Philadelphia and they wanted to shoot some free throws after the game? And they're like, we're trying to take the hoop down. Like, get that ladder out of here.
Yeah, everybody made a big deal about that and was blaming Giannis for that. And I totally went the other way. I'm like, this guy's worth, $500 million to the NBA, to the Bucks, to everybody. And you got a guy making $14 an hour who wants to take down the hoop, who's going to tell him, I got to take the hoop down now. You can't practice free throw shots. Like, get out of here. I mean, like, you're just going to have to wait an hour for him to shoot the free throws. Like, that's just how it works. Like, this guy's the face of the NBA. So, I mean, I sided with him on that. If he wants to work on his free throws after the game, wait another 20 minutes and let him work on his free throws. Like, you're not going to throw him out. And so all he did was slide the ladder over, and then it fell down, and everyone made a big deal about it. But
yeah,
everybody makes a big deal about everything. So
that is true. Main point right there. Once the ladder fell, you knew it was going viral.
Yeah. And I mean, the larger point, you hit on it. He wanted to go out and work on his craft after the game. I haven't heard about that since probably 1997,
That's true.
Yeah, and most guys are on their way to the bar after the game. I mean, this guy wants to go work on his craft, as you said, and I mean, they're trying to throw him out. It's like he's worth a lot more to this league than you taking down the stanchion. So you're just going to wait a few minutes.
And then the funny thing is, too, I was thinking, like, if it were a Nets player, the Nets would always sell, like, this court after games. Like, a lot of times when we leave it, there'd be some rec league on the court, So.
Yeah, there was always something going on after the games on the court. So, I mean, the idea that at 10:30 they had to have him off the floor is just nonsense. So, but, I mean, we know that from being there covering games. We saw what would go on the courts after the game. people on Twitter, they just see a video of a ladder falling down and they're like, oh, this guy's out of control, and it's like, why? Because he wants to practice?
One final question for me here. Out of all the things that happened from 2013 to now, Kevin Durant signing, Kyrie signing, Ben Simmons trade here and there, do you think going back to it, if they stayed in New Jersey, the Nets stayed in New Jersey, do you think they would have been anywhere closer to a championship to where they are today?
Probably not. I think it probably would have played out similarly. I think a lot of the reason Kyrie is from New Jersey. So, had the team stayed in New Jersey, he probably still would have pushed, because he was the ringleader of that twosome. So, he would have said to Durant, look, they've got the money. And Kevin Durant would have said, okay, yeah, I'll go with you. There was opportunity there. So, it's not like they went to a market where they were the number one team. So, the Knicks were still there. So, they were going to be the B team, as it were, if they were in New Jersey, whether they were in Brooklyn, where they were on Long Island, wherever they were. Unless they were going to Seattle, where it's like you've got that entire market to yourself. I'm sure a lot of it would have played out similarly if the owner had kept it there, as long as he was still willing to spend money. As long as you're willing to spend money, guys are still going to go play for you. So, Darren Williams decided to stay with them, and, he played a couple of years in Jersey. So, I don't necessarily know that it would have played out differently. They went to the finals with Jason Kidd. It's not like they weren't,
true.
He didn't have the ability to be good just because of the location they were in. So, they were able to keep him on the team for a while. So.
Yeah, it's very true. And you look at it, and you're right. I think it almost made him worse going to the city. That just made him even probably more desperate, Whereas, you look how those teams were built. Kidd was like the last piece of a team that they let build. And then this time they had the makings. They had built all these guys up like Spencer Dinwiddie. And then this guy takes over. And then it's like, oh, let's get back to the free agent frenzy. Let's go,
Yeah, and I think there was a lot of equity in that with the fans. And I think about this a lot, that it's like, that blue collar mentality, you almost need to woo the fans with young, energetic guys who play hard. And I think the city really got behind that team because of what they stood for. And regardless if you're a Nets fan or not, I can't see many people saying it's a likable group of guys. Ben Simmons quit on the Sixers for a year. He didn't want to play for them after that 2021 debacle in the playoffs against the Hawks. You have Kevin Durant requesting trades, firing coaches. Kenny Atkinson was gone. He did a great job with that team. He's gone. Then Steve Nash comes in because he's his buddy. Now he's gone. Now Jacques Vaughn comes in. So and then Kyrie Irving. We need another hour just to go over that. They're not really a likable group of guys. So whereas the Dinwiddie, Russell, Karis LeVert, Jared Allen team. Were they going to win a title as constructed? No, but they were still a likable team. And what I would have found interesting is if they had kept all those guys and just signed Kyrie and KD and said, we're not making any trades. We're going to keep the big man in the center with Jared Allen. We're going to keep all these pieces around them and see how that would have gone. But, Durant wanted to play with Harden. And this summer, I think he still wanted to play with Harden, which is why he asked out. So,
and that's the thing. Somebody said when they fired Nash, like, what an idea. Like the idea they handled the offseason. Durant wanted out, or he wanted Nash fired. They didn't do anything. They thought they could bring everybody back as it were. And, the first 2 weeks were a total disaster. And so it's like they went from disaster to just like mediocrity now. And you're right. They're no better really under Jacques Vaughn. Do you think Jacques Vaughn finishes the season, or do you think we may have another surprise?
Oh, no, he'll definitely finish the season. But, his deal only runs through next season. So, I don't know that he's some long-term answer. I think the reason that they signed through next season was so that he would have the stability where if they fire him after the season and go get Ime Udoka, he's at least getting a year pay of being a head coach. So, right. That's to his advantage. I don't think he's necessarily a long-term answer, but, he's definitely the head coach, I would say, for the rest of this year. I'd be shocked if they moved on from him again. But I could definitely see Ime Udoka opening night of 2023 being the head coach.
That makes sense because Boston, the way his replacement's going, there's no need to bring him back.
Yeah, and I don't think that the league wanted the league and the other owners did not want the Nets hiring Ime Udoka. And again, that's another story that we could spend a lot of time talking about. But I think the idea that he served basically a 9-game suspension when Boston suspended him for 82 did not sit well with a lot of the other governors in the league, as it were.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you got to respect the other team's suspension, guys. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least give him half a season. But 9 games in, and it's like, well, whatever he did wasn't our problem, so we're going to hire him. It's like,
talking to Greg Harina here. Thank you so much for joining us, Greg. We totally appreciate it, and we're definitely going to have you on, hopefully before Christmas, because you know how massive Christmas is with NBA. But it's always a joy talking to you, and we look forward to more.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks so much, Greg.
You got it.
That was great. Thank you so much, Greg. As always, talking sports with Rich, Tuesday nights. But to have Greg, a former NBA writer, author of the 5-year plan, me and you are talking Brooklyn Nets all the time. To have a Nets reporter on like that was an awesome experience, and I'm glad he was able to join us.
Oh, me too. He definitely wealth of knowledge on that team. I mean, we were there for years, and I mean, it is truly remarkable that team just. You could go 2-3 years without following them, then it's like it's the same thing, you know?
Exactly. I felt like we could do the whole show on the Brooklyn Nets issue.
Oh yeah,
from
we
beginning
could have
to end.
Give like Greg talk for an hour, you know.
On the other side of the break, we're going to be talking boxing. Keep it in the ring, along with baseball free agency update. Whole lot to go with that. MVP talk, a bunch to go. But after the break, we'll get to it.
The door and keep your eyes shut. The lights flicker, there's evil all around us. No one's safe from the nightmare. Cold sweat, so scared. Someone get me out of here. They say you better be afraid. The night's coming like fire from a hand grenade. There's no escaping tonight. It's coming alive.
Back Tuesday night, Sports with Rich, starting time at 8 p.m. This is the second hour of the program. As always, on the SLG Network, like, comment, and subscribe. It does so much you can't even imagine. We appreciate it. Here with my co-host, Jason Schott from Brooklyn Digest. We gave Rich Mancuso the week off. Well-deserved. He's working too hard. But here we go with the Sports Week. We're halfway there because there's so much to talk about. We're going to switch it this segment and talk Keep It in the Ring, boxing. Mega news, I believe it was this past Thursday. I saw on Twitter, email, everywhere. Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia's fight is set to go mid-April of 2023 in Las Vegas.
Wow.
The date is not set yet, but everything else is set. 28-year-old in Gervonta Davis, 27-0, 25 knockouts. Ryan Garcia, 24 years old, 23-0, 19 KOs. Just like that, this is the fight boxing fans have been wanting for month by month. Since March, I can't even imagine what month it was. But I seen it on my Twitter feed every night. These fans want it, and they finally get it. Before they get it, Gervonta will go against Hector Luis Garcia on January 7th in Washington, D.C. And after that, all goes well. The fight is slated mid-April, Garcia versus Tank. And I can't be more excited for that. I know Rich can't be. He wants to go. I know for sure he wants to go out there to Vegas. He's already planning.
You can't have a big fight like that without Rich there. That's for sure.
For sure. It's going to be pay-per-view and broadcasting on Showtime along with DAZN. They're going to partner along with it, and that's how they're going to make their money because a fight like this, it's going to be on every single bar, restaurant in any region of the United States and across the globe.
Yeah, those are the kind of fights that really carry the other fights in a way. You know, is that true?
Oh, yeah, for sure. This is the type of fight that all the random sports fans are watching boxing that night.
And it's a legit fight. This isn't like some Jake Paul.
No.
This
is a legit fight. They have a lot of hostility against each other. They've been talking trash to each other from the beginning. Instagram posts, Twitter posts. It seems like a middle school fight sometimes on Twitter, but I'm not going to get to that. A lot of trash talk. Let me just end it there. Another boxing note. Teofimo Lopez will face Sandor Martin. Jose Pedraza was replaced because of non-COVID illness this last week or so, and the fight was scheduled on December 10th. That's just a huge, massive, bad for Jose Pedraza. Wish him the best with everything. Non-COVID illness at this, 2 weeks before the fight. That's just terrible on all aspects. The slate right now, Martin is 40-2, 13 knockouts, only 29 years old. His biggest upset was against Mikey Garcia in the last year or two. And for Teofimo Lopez, he's 17-1, 13 knockouts, 25 years old, out of Las Vegas. And this is funny. It connects to you and your Heisman college football love.
Oh,
It's the Teofimo Lopez, the night of this fight on December 10th. It's his third fight following the Heisman presentation in his career.
Wow. And it's in Vegas, right, Robert?
Yep, it's in Vegas.
And in Vegas early that week, they will be doing the College Football Hall of Fame presentation too. That's a big week for the National Football Foundation, and very sad that that's not in New York anymore. They moved it out to Vegas last year, and I don't anticipate ever coming back to New York. So.
One final note with the boxing and UFC segment, keep it in the ring as always. Israel Adesanya lost to Alex Pereira in UFC 281 at Madison Square Garden in New York City this past weekend. And following the weekend, leaving the airport at JFK this past Wednesday afternoon, he was arrested for carrying brass knuckles on him. That's illegal in New York, and he immediately cooperated with authorities. I don't expect anything of it, but you just got to play more safe on the planes, man. Celebrities, athletes out there.
Yeah.
We see with football guys now, all the rule changes. Don't drink on the plane. Don't bring any weapons on the plane. Don't bring any drugs on the plane. There's no need for that. And I just hope it gets better from here for Adesanya, and it will.
Yeah, every state has different rules. You got to be aware of it.
For sure. No, you got to be aware of it.
And one last note, if I may, Rich brought this up to me yesterday. On Friday night at the Garden will be at the Hulu Theater at Madison Square Garden will be the 2022 PFL World Championship. 6 world title fights, the biggest MMA night of the year. So Friday night at the Garden, Black Friday night.
Gardens always having something. If it's not basketball or hockey, you know the boxing and MMA is coming right there, other than the concerts.
And in the Hulu Theater, nice intimate setting, that'll be a fun night.
Oh, for sure. The Hulu, I kind of like the Hulu Theater because you're much closer to the action and you feel the fan atmosphere in you. Everyone's so close to one another, and I get it with the pandemic, but as a sports fan and a sports junkie, you're paying that much money to get into the arena, you better enjoy it.
Yeah, that's true, and that's one thing there about the Hulu Theater. You're right there. There's not bad seats. So Friday night at the Garden,
for sure. We're gonna switch it from keeping in the ring to boxing. Keeping in the ring, all the boxing UFC news out the window, to baseball free agency update. A bunch going on. This is the time of the year. It's a bunch of rumors. Don't believe what you see. Honestly, Twitter, I go through it every day. I'm like, BS, just like that. So. Yeah, and you know the reports I'm talking about. But
I mean, I think one of the more bizarre angles was how the New York writers, after Aaron Judge, who else won the MVP on Thursday, that basically that meant the Yankees were somehow closer to bringing him back, and that after he won the MVP, it's a reminder of just how good he was, and they've got to break the bank to bring this guy back. Well, I guess they had amnesia from his performance in the postseason when he got 3 hits and 36 at-bats. I mean, yeah, he had a great regular season, but, I mean, you can't ignore the guy's not a postseason performer, and he's going to get his money, but let's not get nuts here that you got to break the bank and not examine the complete picture. You know, I mean, he met with the San Francisco Giants today. San Francisco Giants have tons of money. They had a bad year last year. They won 26 less games than they did in 2021. He's from the Bay Area. Makes a lot of sense to me, you know, so I don't think the Yankees are a lock at all to bring him back, you know.
No, I don't think they're a lock at all. It's just going to be week by week basis, see how the meetings go, and you see the videos here and there. It's just going to be rumors from there because he's from the Northern California area. He's probably there with family, prepping for Thanksgiving, and obviously he's going to meet with the Giants too, but he's spending time with his family. It's the offseason. These people have to remember they're normal people at the end of the day. I get it. They're athletes, but they're just enjoying time with the family at the end of the day.
The timing is interesting because I remember when the Yankees signed Johnny Damon out of Boston. That came out the Tuesday before Thanksgiving in 2005. So, I mean, I kind of was expecting we could have seen some of that, but I don't think so. I think Judge, I think his team, they're going to be very deliberate. I think it took them about a month since the Yankee season ended to meet with San Francisco. Although I wonder when it could have first met with them. Let's say when the World Series ended 2.5 weeks ago. Okay, so that's 2.5 weeks to get out there, fine. And then to me, and I touched on this in my piece the other day where I saw the Yankee offseason more of the same, and I thought, well, one thing they could shake it up is there's a major surprise free agent, Cody Bellinger of the Dodgers. He 2019 and National League MVP. His numbers have dipped the last couple of years. Dodgers basically paid him $17 million last year. They decided they were not going to offer him a contract next year, so he's a free agent. And the thinking is LA's going to bring him back, but at the same time, they cleared $17 million, and Craig Kimbrell's contract's off the books. And then they lost
Tyler Anderson also.
Yep. Trey Turner also is off the books. I mean, a lot of money came off, so you got to wonder, will he make a trip down to L.A. also, Aaron Judge, and go talk to them? And then you could look, if that happens, if the Yankees lose Judge, could Cody Bellinger wind up in New York? Great swing, left-handed hitter. Father played on the Yankees dynasty teams in the late 90s. That makes a lot of sense, too.
That's a good point. That could be a great replacement for Judge, because whoever comes in, if Judge leaves, is going to get bashed to begin with, because that's how Yankee fans are. They want Aaron Judge back. They need their number 99 jersey. That's the way it was all season long. There wasn't a bigger fan base in the Yankee Stadium than number 99.
Oh, especially past Labor Day.
For sure. We have a video that you captured at Aaron Judge's 60th home run game at Yankee Stadium this past season. Avery, can you throw the video up, please?
There it is, number 60. We're in the ninth inning. Yankees are down 8-4. The fans are stuck around out of the war. Number 60.
Great credit to you. We had to start off from there. The commentary also. Have you ever thought of getting in the press box and the radio booth specifically?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to.
I can hear it in you. You have that energy.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Those videos, I did those videos all year on Instagram, my pregame videos, and then big moments like that would jump in and, capture a lot of fun. I mean, that really, Judge's Chase was definitely a lot of fun. I mean, it's very sad in a way how they haven't won a ring with him. And I think if you're a Yankee fan, you have to really still remember when they lost to the playoffs, he spoke in the past tense and said, I wish I could have won a ring here in my 6 years. You don't say that if you're thinking of coming back,
That's true. On the other side of New York, another award winner, Buck Showalter of the New York Mets, Manager of the Year, 101 win season. He got all the buy-in from the players from beginning to the end, connected with Billy Epler and Steve Cohen from beginning to end, spending 147 days in first place, dealt with a bunch of injuries with DeGrom, Scherzer, you name it. He dealt with it, and he deserves it. Out of all the guys on the list, Buck Showalter is your Manager of the Year.
I mean, look who he beat out. He beat out Dave Roberts of the Dodgers, who won 111 games, and then he beat out Brian Snitker, who, ironically, the Braves beat out the Mets for the division title. Of course, Snitker, they won the World Series in 2021. So, I mean, Buck definitely with this year, he earned it. That team just, they took to him. He totally changed the culture, answered all the questions like, would he still be able to relate to younger players since he was one of the older managers in the sport? And I mean, every time they looked in the dugout there, he was talking to Francisco Lindor or Max Scherzer or whatever. I mean, he just, I mean, and what vindication to come back to this city after the Yankees let him go in 1995 and to put together that season. Only the second, the Mets won 101 games, which was the second most in their franchise history to only the 86 team, which won 108. And then he was the first Met manager to win 100 games in his first season. Oof. Yeah, the accolades were unbelievable.
I was going to say, you notice it more than all these other New York writers in the press box, post-game interviews. He connects with the media, and he asks us all the time, how are you? And then he wishes us the best at the end of the season. What makes Buck Showalter, and I know the answer, tell the viewers, what makes Buck Showalter connective to the fan base, especially in New York?
I think he lets you in. Like if he has like a press conference before the game and they've had a late night, he'll come in like, oh God, it was a late night, wasn't it? Because he knows we're going through it too with him, man. It's like, oh, you're tired, I'm tired. I mean, that says a lot. Or, you'd never know what he starts talking about when he'd leave his office. One day he came in, he was talking about breakfast cereal. The guy was unbelievable. I mean, just such a refreshing, not a machine, not, you can tell they're not rehearsed lines. And it's like, he'll then, like one day he was talking about Terrence Gore, like how the speedster that he is. And it was like, somebody asked him, well, who was, whose speed does he remind you of your Joel Gurley? He's like, oh, Deion Sanders when he was with the Yankees in the early 90s. I made that a standalone piece because not many people probably remember Deion Sanders with the Yankees 30 some odd years ago, So it's just the wealth of knowledge is just incredible,
And honestly, for a 23-year-old coming into the business, he made me feel so comfortable in those press conference rooms. I didn't ask that many questions to begin with, but just me being that young reporter, he let me feel connected amongst my peers. And I really appreciated that amongst all the managers across Major League Baseball. Showalter's top class, 1 or 1A right there.
Absolutely. And I mean, the only sad part is that they didn't go that far, and you got to then look ahead to next year. It's going to be a different team just by necessity, all the free agents they have. And will they be able to recreate that magic? Will they be able to come back? I mean, that's where it's a very, it's like you look at this year, it's like you really wish the playoffs went more than 3 days for them.
Exactly. A tough 72 hours for the Mets.
Yeah.
And overall, we're talking about the Mets, so we're going to switch it here with Jacob deGrom. Mega storylines week by week. Free agency coming up. 26 starts last 2 seasons. Everything's about the injury concerns with deGrom so far. 34 years old. There's going to be teams out there banking on him. Texas, one of them. Atlanta, the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees. At least 5 teams are in on him right now, and I expect there to be more, if not 5 to begin with.
Oh, easily. I mean, I think the Mets, it's very instructive who they signed first in the offseason. Edwin Diaz, the closer, I think they recognized Diaz was their most important free agent. He'd be the toughest to replace the closer, whereas deGrom, if you don't bring him back, you can go so many different ways. You can go get Justin Verlander, for example, reunite him with Max Scherzer. I mean, they pitched together in Texas with the Detroit Tigers for years. Even though Verlander's older, you can probably rely on him more. So, deGrom is you could play this 100 different ways. The guy has 2 Cy Youngs, but the last 2 years, and he faded down the stretch this year, even though he didn't start pitching until early August. He faded in September. He had a horrible start in Oakland. It really, when they blew the division to Atlanta, you think what games they lost to Denver. That was one. They gave him a 4-0 lead early, and he had nothing. Then he was mediocre against the Braves. Then even though he won in the playoffs against San Diego, San Diego was 1 or 2 hits away from winning that game.
You said it during that night. It wasn't the deGrom you expected. As much as he was the only Met to get a win that series, it wasn't the deGrom we all know of and expect out of him. My question for you with deGrom specifically, there's so many money figures year by year. If I gave you 3 options right now and you're the general manager of a team, what are you doing for Jacob deGrom? These are the 3 options. 2 years for 90, 3 for 130 to 135, you determine, or 4 for 180.
Boy, the shortest duration. That's my guess. I think, you forget how old he is. He's 34. I mean, in fairness to the Mets, unlike Aaron Judge, this is his first time in free agency. deGrom's never been a free agent because the Mets gave him an extension in 2018 or 2019. Brody Van Meegen was the GM who did it. And I think that was one of his first order business we took over. So you've already had him for 9 years. That means a lot. And I think you could maybe do, and if it's the Mets to do it, because the Mets have, financial wherewithal at this point, you could do the 2 for 90. I think that would probably be a lot better than 4 would be. I mean, they gave Max Scherzer 3 years. What's he going to have in the 3rd year,
4 is shocking, but I expect a team like the Rangers or another desperate team out there to just go everything at the wall and say, here, 4 years, we'll take it. We'll figure out the consequences at age 38 for deGrom.
Yeah, I think the question is, will the Mets think they're that desperate? I don't know. I mean, they brought Carrasco back. He was a 15-game winner. Chris Bassett, is gone. Taijuan Walker, nobody really talks about whether they're going to bring him back, then you have to wonder, Tyler McGill or David Peterson, will they step up into the rotation full time? So I mean, the Mets, this is where you look, it's gonna be different going next year. And will those guys? I mean, Tyler McGill did great as a fill-in for DeGrom starting last year, but it's a different mindset when you're going into spring training and you're answering those questions as a member of the rotation. I mean, to me, a guy they should look at is probably like Nathan Eovaldi, free agent from the Red Sox. He's had injury issues, but when he's on, and he's won in the playoffs, he has a ring with the Red Sox.
He's
if you're
proven
going
to win.
Yeah, I mean, you almost would rather go with him, and he'd go cheap compared to DeGrom.
For sure. and like you said, he's proven to win. He's won in the big moment in Boston, in New York. As much as Yankee fans didn't like Eovaldi at the time, Eovaldi's a bulldog on the mound, and there's not many bulldogs anymore, especially in the postseason. That's when you figure it out. Like Framber Valdez, complete bulldog. Not many know of it until the postseason last year.
Yeah, exactly. and then you look at Christian Javier too with the Astros. I mean, there are guys in this, especially the postseason means so much now in this sport. Really, you have to look at that a lot. You can't just look at, oh, I got us 18 wins. Well, what are they doing? Well, who knows?
Sports with Rich here Tuesday night. Starting time as always 8 p.m. with my co-host Jason Schott. I'm Robert Rizzo from Latino Sports. We gave Rich the night off. Well, he'll be back next Tuesday. Full energy as always, talking boxing, keep it in the ring, you know it. Back to the baseball. You mentioned it before. Justin Verlander, 3-time Cy Young Award winner, over 3,100 innings pitched, over 3,200 strikeouts, 11 seasons with 180 plus strikeouts. The guy does it all. He's 39 years old. That's the biggest question. And he's the most coveted free agent right now out of pitching. Houston, Yankees, Mets, Dodgers are the top markets for him right now.
I think I can't see him coming to the Yankees. I just can't see it. I think the Yankees, just at this point, you can't trust they're ever going to get the top guy. And I don't think, like somebody said, he'll reunite with Garrett Cole. He pitched with Garrett Cole for 5 minutes. I mean, if he's going to reunite with anybody, he's going to be Max Scherzer. The Dodgers is interesting. That's an interesting one because the Dodgers had a lot of holes in that rotation last year, and they lost Tyler Anderson. That may be a good call.
I think so too, because anywhere Verlander goes, especially even if he stays in Houston, you see the juggernaut with that rotation behind him. Dodgers, it's that 1-2 Kershaw and Verlander, 1-2 with Scherzer in New York, 1-2 with Cole in New York. That's what this game's becoming now. You see it here and there. It's that 1-2 punch, and then when you get to the playoffs, if they're hitting on all cylinders, you got a chance to make it to the Fall Classic.
And Dodgers also, Walker Buehler, they'll have him back, I would hope, next year. And then Julio Urias also. So, I mean, that rotation, and then who knows? You may get a couple surprises like Tyler Anderson. I mean, Dodgers turned that guy into a great pitcher, and who's going to pay him? The Angels. Let's see how that turns out,
Out of nowhere. The Angels be making moves, but it's the quiet ones, and everyone hypes them up in the offseason. And then coming into May, June, the season's over.
Yeah.
We were talking about the Yankees here and there. We're going to bounce back to New York. Gleyber Torres has had his name in the trade rumors so far this week and throughout this offseason. I think he would be a great target for all teams out there, especially a young core. 25-plus homers in 3 of his 5 seasons with the Yankees. He's only 25 years old. He has glaring issues on defense, especially. A lot of lackadaisical, nonchalant. Reminds me of Robinson Cano at second base here and there. But Seattle Mariners have linked them to Gleyber Torres. Interested? What do you think about that so far?
I think he's a guy that needs a new situation. I think he's emblematic of what the Yankees have become. Big regular season, heads his stats. Like 1 year, half his home runs were against Baltimore when Baltimore was still a pretty bad team. And then gives you nothing in postseason. Was miserable at shortstop. This year he was better at second base by comparison, but you're correct. His laziness came through. He's one you got to shake this team up somehow, and they got. But of course, though, you look how they shook it up going into last season. Oh, they finally got rid of Gary Sanchez. How'd they do it though? Bye Gio Urshela, who's also now an Angel. I saw that the other day. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
And you basically got rid of one problem by then taking on another problem with Josh Donaldson and that ridiculous contract for a dead hitter. I mean, a dead bat. I mean, And then, of course, let's all go back to square one. Who's running the team? Brian Cashman, who contract expired 3 weeks ago. Any word on re-signing him, firing him, bringing in anybody else? No, of course not. All fine in Yankee land,
It complicates me so much, and I know there's other general managers out there that have that deal, but you're not employed right now, and you're going to make deals with the team. It's just organizational standpoint. I'm not even talking sports. I don't like that aspect of it, and I know that's the Yankee way, especially with Cashman. But we're in 2022. Get the deal done.
Yeah, exactly. And one title in 21 years, 22 seasons. Really, that doesn't cut it. This is New York. By comparison, the Boston Red Sox have 4 rings in the same time. Now, Houston has more rings than you in the same time period, too, since they got their second ring. St. Louis has 2 in the same period. Philadelphia nearly got their second in the same period. So,
Philadelphia.
When are they going to get the urgency up there? I don't get it.
No, I totally agree. You mentioned Philadelphia, so that brings me to my next point. They're the most rumored franchise to be going for Trey Turner, stud shortstop, multiple-time All-Star. He's batting .312, 49 homers with 177 RBIs the last 2 seasons. He's the most durable shortstop out there. All the injuries are knick-knack injuries, like sliding into second base, dislocating a finger. Nothing's hamstrings, calves, nothing like that. I think he's going to land with Philly. If not, re-sign with the Dodgers. Those are my 2 spots for him. Only 29 years old.
Yeah, Phillies makes sense. He played in Washington. He'd reunite with Bryce Harper, knows the NL East. The other wild card is general manager Dave Dombrowski, who they re-signed today till 2027. They're not stupid. The guy took it to the World Series. Guy takes teams to the World Series. Why mess with it? And he, of course, was with Xander Bogaerts in Boston. He's a free agent, thinking as they could sneak in and get him as well.
No, Turner's going to be out there for sure. And with the Phillies Dodgers, I expect there to be more teams than that, because that type of talent should not just be two teams interested at the end of the day.
Exactly. But of course, it probably won't be the Yankees because they decided to bring back a chick or Falefa the other day. You benched him in the playoffs. What are you doing bringing him back?
And it was a $6 million deal, and I know it just avoids arbitration. But at the end of the day, he's going to be your bench player in the field.
It's message as much as anything, because everybody knows the tip would be you bring him back, you're ready to then promote Anthony Volpe or Oswald Peraza, and it's like you're going to pass up this shortstop class. Come on, God, my goodness,
Along with the shortstop class, we talk about Carlos Correa every week. We're going to avoid Carlos Correa topic this week and go to Dansby Swanson. The shortstop market is packed. We could go all day about it, but Dansby Swanson from the Atlanta Braves, multiple-time All-Star, won a Gold Glove this year, All-Star, like I said, and 12th in voting for the MVP this year. He's doing it all. Many teams are interested in him. Braves, Giants, Cardinals, Dodgers are the top 4 right now.
Yeah, he definitely has a lot of appeal. And, people are seeing, if the Dodgers, since the Dodgers were able to get Freddie Freeman out of there last year, he was a Georgia native. No, Freeman's not Georgia. Freeman was California, went to the Dodgers. They were able to get him out of there. Everyone thought he'd be a lifetime break. Swanson's going to be tricky because he's a Georgia native. Will he really want to leave the Braves? But if they're not competitive, and we know they probably have a shortstop waiting in the wings, and that's a very young group, and they lock all their guys up. Look at that Michael Harris II, the rookie of the year. He was signed, got a long-term contract within a month of hitting the major leagues. They just know their guys, and Swanson's definitely one of their guys. And I don't know. Could you see a surprise like Boston going to get him and letting Bogaerts go?
Ooh, that's a good question. Maybe. I could see that, but at the end of the day, I feel like with Boston, I'm signing Story. They put so much money in Story, and also they know Devers is on the way. If he signs, that contract's going to be lucrative. I think Rafael Devers could make at least $280 million.
Easy. Yeah, he's been a stud the second he arrived. He's like their Juan Soto.
Yeah, exactly. And you have the Boston fan base already engraved in him. You can't pull him away like you did Mookie.
Yeah, it's true.
On the West Coast, Shohei Ohtani made news. He did not win the MVP last week. Obviously, Aaron Judge did. But The 28-year-old out of Japan will be representing Japan in the 2023 World Baseball Classic. Very excited for that. Hope to cover that in March. The guy does it all. 34 homers, 95 ribbies, 15-9 record on the mound. I can't even begin to say what he does on the mound and at the plate.
Yeah, I mean, if it weren't for Judge's year, he probably wins the MVP again. I mean, there's just no question. I mean, the mystifying thing is for a guy to put those numbers up, how does that team not win? I mean, the Yankees, it made sense. Judge's 60 home runs, they won 99 regular season games. That's how it should go. And Ohtani, I don't think it's him. I mean, I wouldn't say that. And I mean, it's going to be very interesting. The WBC, will he crank it up too much there? Will it affect the Angel season? I mean, shoot, with their luck, he'll blow his arm out in the WBC, you know?
No, definitely. And I'm gonna be interested to see how they manage that, honestly. Will the Angels allow him to pitch in the World Baseball Classic? Strictly DH?
Yeah. They better be in touch with those Japanese coaches, because those coaches, they're not going to care. If he wants to pitch every other day, play the field, whatever, they'll what do we want the medal, you know? Go ahead.
For sure.
You know, do what you want.
And especially with Ohtani, if Ohtani's pitching on the mound, that's Japan's best way of winning the game. I don't care who is up at the plate. And if they want to win, you need Ohtani on that mound. The Angels might not agree with it.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be just more fun, you know?
Our last topic on baseball this week, a crazy fight happened in the Venezuelan Winter League.
Oh, this was good, yeah.
I believe on Friday. I'm looking through Twitter, and I'm just like, random home run comes on the feed, and then guy crosses first base and just quick knockout with his left forearm, and it ended up being Asdrubal Cabrera hit Carlos Castro, a minor league player at the time. Nonsense to begin with, and it was a bat flip, and Latinos are known to start that, and for them to be fighting, it was total nonsense. Gleyber Torres commented on Instagram about it. Many Latino players said it ruins baseball, stuff like that. There were children in the crowd watching that. No one wants to see that, especially for a 12-year-old that bought tickets or just showed up to the game. Nonsense.
It was Joel Cabrera's. I mean, this guy's a statesman of the sport. I mean, when he was on the Mets, he was beloved. And, I mean, I think he's been retired, I guess, from Major League Baseball for a few years. But these guys continue to play winter ball in their home countries well into their 40s. So, I don't know. I don't know what the motive was there, you know.
I didn't hear much on it. I only saw the video. There weren't details. I'm just hoping for more details on it.
Yeah, nobody was down there. I mean, I would have gone on a plane and go and covered it, you know.
I saw it on Baseball Fight Club. For everyone out there, follow them on Twitter.
Oh, wow. That's a good one.
All they do is post-fight videos at baseball stadiums.
Well, it sounds like Rich's dream, boxing and baseball combined, you know.
Exactly. One last note on baseball. I found out today the Rogers Center in Toronto is going through massive upgrades and renovations. I'm excited to see how that turns out. It's a gorgeous stadium to begin with. Hotels in the stadium, the dome closing, opening. I'm really excited to see what it's going to be like in March.
Yeah, I remember when this came out, like in July, and it's like you don't realize we're not there in person, but like they basically announced this then. And I mean, the thing is, of course, it didn't look like it was going to be that massive. You look at the pictures, they gutted the place.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. And, you know, I mean, obviously they know the uniqueness of their spot. You know, I mean, they basically won their 2 world championships there. You look at baseball like when I was a kid in the early 90s, it looked like the cleanest place, the best lighting. The Yankee uniforms look the best in that place. The road uniforms, I mean, and to see how it is, I mean, they've maintained it enough. But yeah, I guess, you know, I mean, they're still looking at it like they still want a bigger, you know, another new stadium probably in 10 or 15 years. But if this keeps them in that site, go for it.
For sure. I think it's a win for the team, especially more seats for the fans and better experience for the fans.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to add like the seating decks and all that kind of stuff like the Yankees have in the outfield. And the Mets City Field also did a minor renovation. They're going to even out the right field wall finally. They're going to end that quirk, you know, the Will Punch trying to evoke old Crosley Field or whatever the hell it was, you know, where it's like, oh, the overhang and you're going to come here. No. So there's going to be a new fan area there also. Mets just haven't released what it's going to look like, but basically that, you know, I think they did show like they are working on it. So
I'm waiting to see what that looks like along with the new scoreboards. We're still waiting on that, and that's going to be in the beginning of next season. So they have a lot of work to do in Queens, but we're all for it.
Oh, absolutely. They hyped it last year that basically it's going to like it looked different this year with all the added video boards. Like it's going to look even better this year.
No, I definitely agree. It's going to look better in 2027, as we said in the beginning of the show. Soccer, tennis, baseball, you name it, it's happening at Willets Point.
Oh boy, you're right. Get ready for the three in one day.
Back on Sports with Rich after a commercial break. Hopefully we can get Avery on a score update. There's not many sports going on today. Basketball, 4 games, 2 hockey games. The late game is Rangers Kings at 10:30. But we got a score update coming up and a quick commercial break. After that, NFL Week 12 game picks, in-depth game picks on Thanksgiving. After the break, here we go.
Spending money like it's nothing. I don't have a budget. Please don't get offended when you see the kids stunting. Got my queens with me, but it ain't no Scarborough bluffing. See, I'm riding solo while dependent bitches cuffing. I got all I need, me, myself, and I just love it. I've been gone, riches stacking to the ceiling. I'm dick long. Can never change the side I've been on. In 100 years, I'ma still be with my day ones. When it's said and done, fuck where I'm going, it's all about where I came from.
What's good, everybody? My name is Caleb from the Bayou City Boys over here on the SLG Network. Happy to announce that we are now working with Dano's Seasoning. So if you're anything like me, you meal prep all the time, Dano's is the way to go, man. They got multiple flavors. Hit them up. Be sure to use our code SLG Network. Appreciate every single one of y'all. Peace.
Spending money like it's nothing. I don't have a budget. Please don't get offended when you see the kids stunting. Got my queens with me, but it ain't no Scarborough bluffing. See, I'm riding solo while dependent bitches cuffing. I got all I need, me, myself, and I just love it. I've been gone.
Back on Sports with Rich, Tuesday night, entering the second hour. It's 9:36 now. We're about to get to the third hour, but Here we go. No worries. Like, comment, subscribe as always. Tuesday nights, like I said, starting at 8 p.m. My co-host, Jason Schott, Brooklyn Digest. Thank you for hosting me with me tonight. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No problem. We had to give Rich the night off. Too much energy going on.
Too many pies to make, I tell you.
You know he's prepping for Thursday, turkey,
gravy,
he's
everything. A regular Gordon Ramsay, I tell you.
And speaking of Thanksgiving, this is the massive week. There's 3 F's for Thanksgiving week: food, family, and football. There's a lot of football going down this week. Bills, Lions started off. Giants, Cowboys, Pats, Vikings. That highlights Thanksgiving slate. And I know you guys are going to be glued to the couch because after you have that meal, you're not going to want to move.
You're not going to want to get up for the
meal. For sure. So let's get to it. Week 12 is here. About 5 more weeks, 6 more weeks until NFL playoffs. That's the peak of NFL season right there. You got to zone in on that. But here we go. Bills, Lions, 12 o'clock slate for Thursday. Bills are 9.5-point favorites with a total set at 53.5. Josh Allen versus Jared Goff. Stephon Diggs, Amos St. Brown, David Singletary, and Jamal Williams. A lot of action. Expect a lot of points. Detroit, 31 points scored the last 2 games each. 2-3 at home this season. The Bills on the other side, 2-0 in dome games this season. 5 300 passing yard games from Josh Allen. 6 interceptions the last 4 games out of Allen, but none last Sunday. He's finally picking up a corner from that strained UCL. It was not a torn UCL, banged up UCL at most. A lot riding on this game, and you know people are going to be zoned in right around Thanksgiving time. With Bills Lions, the spread is at 9.5, but I could see you going even higher at 10 or 10.5. I'm going to take Bills money line, play it safe with a total 53.5. I'm doing the over.
I take the Lions. Honestly, yeah? I think they'll cover. I think it's going to be a pretty tight game because you have a short week. Now, I think the line could be high because Buffalo played Cleveland there on Sunday. So this is a unique situation. You have a team playing a road game, but they've been there. They have a book on how to play there. But the Lions, in fairness to them, are a lot better than Cleveland. That's a sad bunch at this point.
Definitely. It's a sad bunch. They're just waiting for Deshaun Watson to get back. I believe it's 1 more week. Jacoby Brissett has held the fort down overall. I believe, 4 4 wins, 5 wins.
There's only
best.
so much he can do, though. Their defense is terrible.
Exactly. That's the most he can do. The defense hasn't held their part. Myles Garrett's playing like a stud, but it's a one-man army at the end of the day if Myles Garrett's doing it.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I think Bills to win the game, but Lions to cover.
For sure. I say it all the time. The double-digit spreads I try to avoid, but I'll sprinkle Bills' money line and the over 53.5. I expect a lot of points.
Yeah, I think the over's safe.
Next up on the slate, the 4:30 game, New York Giants at Dallas Cowboys. Massive implications for the NFC East standings right now. They're only one game apart, and they're going to face each other within the next month. Huge implications. Spread is set at 8-point favorites for Dallas. Total is set at 44.5. Dak Prescott has no 300-yard passing games this season. 5 touchdowns his last 2 games. He's picking it up from there, but a lot of it was Minnesota's game last week where the defense was struggling on all assets. Tony Pollard, 701 rushing yards on the season, 6 touchdowns. Dual threat out of the backfield with Ezekiel Elliott banged up. I feel like majority of the season he's banged up, but Tony Pollard's a great backup to have for the 1-2 punch. On the other side, the Giants, Barkley had 22 yards and 15 rushes last Sunday against Detroit, lowest of the season. And for the quarterback play, Daniel Jones, he had 2 interceptions on Sunday. He was entering that game with no interceptions in the last 5 games. So this could be a huge turning point either side, Dallas or New York. And at the end of the day, I don't expect New York to come out of it with a W. I expect them to cover the 8. I'm taking Giants plus 8, and I'm going to avoid the total.
Wow, I'm the opposite. I think Dallas. I take them to cover. I think they destroyed Minnesota. And the Giants, just that game Sunday was just so terrifying of what the rest of the season is going to be like. I see Dallas completely exploiting everything they did wrong in that game. Like they're going to look at that run defense was a disaster. Daniel Jones, this is make or break. And, I mean, they won a lot of games early despite him. And I think in a way, if he falls apart now, you have a great quarterback class coming up in the draft. You're free to go get whoever you want. And they lost to Dallas at the Meadowlands early in the season. I don't see the Giant. I think Dallas, and they lost to Dallas' backup quarterback at the time. So I don't see the Giants any better at the moment. I see Dallas a lot better than they were then. So I think Dallas, it could be ugly for the Giants.
I know. I agree with you on all those points. I feel like the Giants could hang in there. I think they could be playing catch up in the second half, especially with a 8-point spread. We could see 30-15, 30-14 for the whole game. And then a random touchdown screws you with the last minute to go.
That's true.
The betting gurus in Vegas, they nail it on the wire every time. If it's 3.5, the game is ending at 31-27. And I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, look at the 8. I mean, you could have 31-24. That would be a fine final score. But, yeah, could it have been 31-10 at one point? Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. The final game on the Thanksgiving slate for the NFL, massive games across the board for Thursday. New England Patriots at Minnesota Vikings. Right now, the spread is set at Vikings, favorited by 3 points. Total set at 42.5. Kirk Cousins, 105 yards. First game of his career last Sunday. 105 yards. It's terrible.
It was miserable.
Especially with Justin Jefferson as your wide receiver, Adam Thielen, TJ Hawkinson. Got to have more than 105 yards. No touchdowns also. Kirk Cousins is known for that. Touchdowns and not on prime time. I know that to begin with. But 105 yards. And on the other side, Mac Jones got the big W against the Jets. He had as much as we were talking about the weather conditions and Zach Wilson's poor play, he was playing in the same conditions. Mac Jones had 25 completions. He was doing it all for New England. Obviously, they didn't score. And he had 20 completions the last 3 games. And the old line in front of him has to fix up their patches.
Oh, yeah.
16 sacks in their last 3 games.
Yeah, he could put those numbers up with 9 sacks. Just imagine that, the composure hanging there with all the pressure all game. I mean, that was the strength of New England for all the Brady years, was he never was pressured. And when teams like the Giants did, it was like, whoa, Tom can hit the ground? Wow,
and after seeing Sunday, I'm looking at the spread, Vikings favored by 3. This could be a toss-up or a 2-point
Yeah.
spread at the most. This is gonna be a tight game. I'm gonna be zoned in on it. I'm gonna take Vikings -3, lay the points with the over set at 42.5. I think it's gonna be high scoring affair, Vikings especially. I'll do the over at 42.5, Vikings -3.
And I take New England. I think that defense is unbelievable. I think the Vikings, they're not going to get over that game Sunday easily. That was just terrible. That was a worst game possible to go into a short week. I mean, on one hand, you want to get right back on the field, but at the same time, that's still in your head. There's no question. I mean, you're tired from it too. I mean, yeah, I would take New England. New England didn't need the plane to get out there. They were so on a high after beating the Jets.
That's true. So since you're so down on Minnesota, we'll throw them out the gate for now. The five teams playing on Thanksgiving. Who do you think the Sunday game is going to affect most? The 4-day layoff, you're going right into it on Thursday. Out of the 5 teams, who do you think is going to impact most?
Oh, who's will hurt them going to Thursday? Oh, Minnesota. Yeah.
Minnesota.
Yeah. Even more than the Giants. The Giants was bad, but that Minnesota, that was something else.
We're going to skip forward to the Sunday slate. Thursday to Sunday, it feels like 5 days when it comes to football terms, but it's only 3 days, especially with Thanksgiving. We'll talk about the Sunday slate to begin. Chicago Bears at New York Jets at MetLife. Big matchup for Zach Wilson. He's got to redeem himself in front of the New York fan base. It's only a matter of time because New York Jet fans hearing on the radio today, they're sick of it already. They want to hear accountability out of their second-year quarterback, and right now it's not working. Bears, Jets, total is set at 39.5. Jets are 4.5-point favorites. I'm going to ride high with my Chicago Bears, although Justin Fields is hurt. I'll do the total is set at 39.5. I'm going to go with the under and Bears money line. I'm going to avoid the cover and the money line to begin with. Bears money line and the under 39.5.
I agree. I think Chicago is going to cover it or win. I think the Jets, even though that game's a week after New England, this is the Jets. Basically, all the goodwill they had to start the year was blown away one afternoon up there by Bill Belichick and the gang. I mean, this is same old Jets now.
And they did it twice. The game at MetLife a few weeks back. Wilson, it felt like a stat pad because Wilson had over 300 yards but 3 interceptions. But
yeah, exactly. So twice in 3 games because they had a bye thrown in there. And the exception, of course, they did beat Buffalo. Okay, fine. That was a good win, but still, 2 losses to Bill, that'll kill you. That draws all the ghosts back.
Before I get ahead of the picks, more to come. If the Jets and Zach Wilson lose on Sunday to the Bears, and it's Zach Wilson is the main reason why, do you think they go with Joe Flacco and Mike White for the rest of the season or just week-by-week basis?
Oh, that's a definite. You can't throw the season away. You have a franchise that has been in the playoffs since 2010, which I believe is the longest streak at this point.
It is.
In the league. I mean, you have to, if you're not going to go for it now, you can't guarantee you're going to get this chance again. I mean, the last time they were close to a playoff was 2015. Then the next year, I think they won 4 games or some ridiculously low number. I mean, you can't pass up the. You got to have that urgency. And when you have a veteran quarterback like Flacco, he'll know how to manage the game, and you basically just win on your defense. And if it's not the most entertaining football, who cares? You got to get in the playoffs this year. You can't let this go by. You can't let New England made the playoffs this year. You don't want to see them in again.
It's that old saying. When's it that time to beat Big Brother? And we thought 3 weeks ago it was that time, and we thought this past Sunday was that time. It's still not yet. But if they can get through and overthrow New England in the standings, that's being Big Brothers, honestly. Take it as is.
That would outweigh losing to them. Exactly right.
Next up on the slate, Los Angeles Chargers at Arizona Cardinals. Right now the Chargers are slated at 4.5-point favorites with a total set at 47.5. From what I saw from the Cardinals yesterday and the way they tackle, it seemed like they weren't trying. There was no energy. There was no awareness. Chargers 4.5. If it was 7.5, I'm locking it in.
Oh, make it 10.5.
I'm locking it in. Justin Herbert and Chargers, they were basically 30 seconds away from upsetting Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to ride high on the Chargers 4.5 and also the over 47.5.
I agree on both. I think that's going to be an absolute slaughter. I think the Cardinals fell apart this time last year, and they were a far better team last year. So, and Monday night showed, yeah, they got nothing. That's a team. They can't really get rid of that coach quick enough.
Many fans last season wanted this matchup going into the NFL playoffs, a Super Bowl matchup with the Los Angeles Rams versus the Kansas City Chiefs. That would have been an awesome matchup right then and there. Would have been Matt Stafford versus Mahomes. We get it now. And 8 months changes a lot of things because the Rams are not the Rams from February. It's a totally different team. Rams versus Chiefs. The Chiefs are 15-point favorites last time I checked.
God.
15. Wow. That's an NBA spread.
Yeah, exactly.
But the total is set at 43.5. And like I started off this betting segment, I don't like double-digit spreads. I'm going to ride with Rams plus 15 and avoid the total as a whole. Ride with Rams plus 15. Hopefully it gets up to 17, and I'll take it at 17.
I think that line, you're right, that line's bad for the simple fact the Rams are still teams that have a lot of pride. And Stafford, I don't believe he played Sunday. I've not really kept track whether
I don't think he played.
I don't think he'll play this Sunday either, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
So you're not going to have Stafford, even though it's a team with a lot of pride. I could still see that spread. I'd take Kansas City. I could see that being 28-7. Let's put it that way. It may not be 42-10, but no, it's not going to be close either.
You can never go wrong with picking with Kansas City. In Mahomes' career, he's undefeated in November and December.
Yeah.
So this is the time to bet Mahomes. And if you have the money to put it up, and they're favored week by week, it's like minus 250, minus 350 every time I'm opening up the betting app.
Yeah.
And you just got to depend on the spreads if you're trying to make some plus money.
And apropos of what we were just saying with the Jets, Rams, perfect example. Last year's team was built for now. They won it, and look what happened. It's a tough sport to keep it going.
Exactly.
That was an old team last year. They won it. Then this year, Cooper Kupp's also hurt. They lost their top wide receiver, so a lot went wrong, and that just shows you got to seize the moment.
Exactly. They bought in for that one Super Bowl championship, and let me tell you, it's worth it. But now they're feeling that aftermath with no first-round picks. I believe they have one until 2026.
That's probably right. Yeah, they sent like 3 of them for Von Miller, but it was worth it.
Yeah, exactly. So at the end of the day, we keep saying all these trade scenarios. It was worth it because they got the ring. Many franchises, they wish they could have been in that spot.
And they could probably palm off a few guys now and sort of reconstitute those picks, Or else suggest what those picks are worth. What's Zach Wilson worth,
Next up on the slate, Green Bay Packers at Philadelphia Eagles. Right now, the total is 46.5, with the Eagles favored by 7. Our last week guest, Ricky Ricardo, will be calling that game. Tune into that.
Oh, wow.
With the Eagles favored as 7-point favorites against the Packers. After that game I saw against the Colts last week, they won by 1, 17-16. I'm going to ride with the Packers plus 7. I expect the Eagles to get the win, but the Packers are going to keep it close. Aaron Rodgers in the cold weather, he'll get it done, I think.
I agree. I could see Green Bay winning that game. I think you're taking the Eagles to win, but I could see Green Bay winning. I mean, Green Bay beat Dallas last week. Like last Sunday, and then they lost this week to Tennessee. It was a pretty good team. I mean, Green Bay's not what they were, but you can't rule out Aaron Rodgers. I said going to that Dallas game, I was proven right, so you never know.
Last up on the slate for us this week, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Tom Brady head out to Cleveland against the Browns. Right now, the spread is set at 3.5.
Wow, that's kind of low.
Right?
Yeah, I'm surprised. Tom deserves more respect than that.
Tom Brady versus Jacoby Brissett.
Patriot reunion.
Total set at 42.5. Vegas is not expecting many points. Honestly, with Brady, Brissett, I'm going to avoid the total and go with Bucks minus 3.5. I feel like the Browns are just waiting for that week that Watson returns. And it's just one more week away. So Bucks minus 3.5. Maybe they go on a run and capture the NFC South.
I think they'll win the division. I think that's part of why Tampa. I think if people are worrying about Tampa too much. They know their division. They had injuries early. They had to find the Gronk replacement. They got the guys back. They have their Gronk replacement finally, and that big tight end. They got that catch at the end to beat the Rams a couple weeks ago. I would take the over big time. I think Tampa's back. I think that team, you got to start treating that team like an elite again.
Is there anything else on the slate that catches your eye? I have one game in mind that catches my eye. Pittsburgh Steelers at Indianapolis against the Colts.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Jeff Saturday's third coaching appearance, and I believe this is his second home game, so he'll hear the fans for sure. Colts -2.5 right now for favorites, total 38.5. Kenny Pickett versus Matt Ryan. Nothing entertaining, but I expect a great running game. Jonathan Taylor versus Najee Harris. I'm going to take the total and the over with 38.5. I'm going to take the over for sure, 38.5.
I agree. I mean, look how Pittsburgh Cincinnati went. That was up there. It was like 26-23, wherever it was. And I would go with Indianapolis. I think a lot of the stuff with Jeff Saturday. Well, for one, Jeff Saturday's proved the pundits wrong. He's won a game and they lost one by a point. He's proven them wrong. The idea he can't coach. And then you look, why did they get run out of New England, which ultimately led to Frank Reich being fired? Oh, they didn't have Jonathan Taylor. How do you fire a coach when you don't have your best player? Taylor's a beast. I mean, he ran New England out when they played them last year. So I think him back makes all the difference. I mean, it may be too late in their season, but still, that's, they can make a late. You never know. They can make a late run. They did last year.
And I was going to say, especially with Jonathan Taylor and who he faced last week, the Phillies run defense, anyone can run against that Philly run defense. And Jonathan Taylor made it look easy, kept the game close, 17-16. It came down to Jalen Hurts' late game miraculous heroics to get it done. And to give up 17 points to the Eagles, that defense has a lot to be proud of themselves for. And it's all on the helm of Jeff Saturday.
Exactly. That's, the Steelers is an off year for the Steelers, and they got to accept it. They're not going to be like New England, where Bill still is making the playoffs. They could have a couple down years out there.
For sure. That concludes our NFL Week 12 betting picks for this week. We're back at it next week, as always, with our betting picks. I don't know how accurate we are week by week, but you know how confident we are week by week. We're being Vegas's tail week by week, and you know.
Oh, yeah.
But as always, Sports with Rich, Tuesday nights starting at 8 p.m., wrapping up here next commercial break. But as we always say, like, comment, subscribe. It goes more than you expect. We appreciate it so much. We just got over 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much to the viewers out there. But we're going to keep it going, gain more viewers, gain more audience. And as we go, the sports season is just heating up. It feels like every month it's something.
And at this point, it feels like every minute.
Exactly. 5 a.m. soccer. Let's do it.
Oh, yeah.
After the commercial break, we're going to wrap things up. College football, AP Top 25, a preview of Ohio State versus Michigan.
Oh, a big difference there, Ohio and Ohio State.
And everything else on the other side.
Lock the door and keep your eyes shut. The lights flicker, there's evil all around us. No one's safe from the nightmare. Cold sweat, so scared. Someone get me out of here. They say you better be afraid. The night's coming like fire from a hand grenade. There's no escaping tonight. It's coming alive.
Sports with Rich on the SLG Network, back Tuesday night, about to turn 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We're wrapping things up here, talking sports as always. We hit on every note tonight: soccer, football, interview with a special guest, Greg Harinya. Awesome interview with him. Betting picks, baseball update, boxing, you name it, we talk about it. Catch us Tuesday nights every week. Rich Mancuso will return next week. Full energy. You know he's coming with a full head of energy.
Oh, he will. He'll be raring to go, especially if the week off.
Special thank you to you, Jason, for co-hosting with me. I totally appreciate it. Ton of fun as always.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks to you and Rich for having me.
For sure, you know that. And talking sports, it never has to be 2 hours. We can go all night with this type of stuff.
We could.
But like I said, like, comment, subscribe, keep active in the comments. We appreciate it. We're going to wrap it up with college football. AP Top 25 just got released earlier tonight. We're going to start with Spencer Rattler and South Carolina upsetting number 5 Tennessee this past Saturday at South Carolina in front of their home fans. Spencer Rattler, transfer out of Oklahoma. He heard a bunch of bashing throughout the offseason from his transfer scenario. He was an all-out stud on Saturday, 30 of 37 with 438 passing yards, 6 touchdowns in the 63-38 win over Tennessee, and they totaled 606 offensive yards. So for South Carolina to conclude their home season like that, their fans are really proud.
Do you think they have a shot at the playoff?
No, I don't think Tennessee is going to have a shot at the playoff. I think.
Well, South Carolina probably no, right? They're probably no. But Tennessee, yeah, they could have been lined up for it for sure.
They could have been lined up for it. I saw they were at 5. They slated down to 10 after the recent announcement. And with 2 games going, a lot of upsets have to happen before them. And I just can't see them getting in. I could see a team like USC getting in before them. But right now, all said and done, the top 4 teams are Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, and TCU. UC at USC is right on the outside looking in, with LSU right there too. It's going to be a hectic 2 weeks for college football.
Yeah, I mean, there's very hard scenarios to see Alabama get in. That's for sure. And that's one thing. It's going to be, you're going to be some different faces there. Georgia, the defending national champions, they're likely in. I think the Michigan-Ohio State game, that's going to be the one. I don't know really. I don't know if they're both secure in and TCU's the one like USC could pick off. But if Michigan or Ohio State loses, that could really screw things up for both of them in terms of winning their conference also. So they may not. One of them could go home. And TCU, what a shocker that would be if they go into the playoff. My goodness.
That would be a big time shocker, especially with all the anticipation going into the season. In regards to Ohio State, Michigan, I truly believe that if either team keeps this game close, there's a shot that both teams still get in with that one loss.
Well, that's a big clarification. That matters how close the game is. Exactly.
We've seen it in years past. The one loss team gets in over the undefeated team out of a random conference. Cincinnati, they made it last year, but there are many teams, one-loss teams, that had an argument to make that final spot. And year by year, we see it. So there's a lot of skepticism going into the last 2 weeks.
And it's very weighed to the big conferences. That's why like I mentioned, Alabama. I think people will be relieved to see a different team in there besides Alabama. A lot of familiar, and that's where the playoff has not won rave reviews. Is that it feels like it's the same 4 teams. So if you get, Michigan made it last year. Michigan's not a perennial. So if they make it again, it's like great, they made it back, good. And then you get a TCU or a USC in there. I mean, now the USC, you mentioned strength of conference. Nobody thinks much of the Pac-12 anymore, and that could hurt USC's chances.
And they're gonna have their hands full because Oregon coming up, and whoever they face in the Pac-12 championship, that's gonna be a tough matchup. But if they go 2-0 in that stretch, maybe they deserve to get into that top 4.
Oh yeah, and then also, of course, they're slated for the Big Ten in 2 years, also.
So much movement in college football, it's insane. In regards to college football, we concluded the Thanksgiving slate obviously on Thursday, and we enter Friday with 4 college football games. 7 ranked teams play. The biggest matchup that I'm going to be zoned in on is North Carolina State versus North Carolina. Those fans are going to be hectic. They're going to be drunk at noon. The game starts at 3:30. Expect them to be in the parking lot at 11:30.
Oh, exactly. That'll be a dogfight. Both teams are really good this year. That doesn't happen often.
No shot. But for the Friday slate, I just love how NFL and college football kind of partners up and just says, let's throw everything at the wall for the fans.
Exactly.
You're glued to your couch for Thursday all the way through Saturday, and then you get all the Saturday and Sunday games. So 4 straight days on the couch, not good.
I think the funny thing, college football has to contend with that USA England soccer on Friday afternoon.
That too, 2:00 start time. We previewed
and of course, when you think now of the landscape, it's funny. if you are if you're trying to watch all this stuff, you could watch hockey or basketball until about 1 a.m. And then 4 hours later, there's a soccer game. There's sports for 20 hours of the day right now.
You're telling me I'm going to have to run a 7-Eleven to get coffee at 3 a.m.?
Yep.
We previewed it a little with Ohio State, Michigan, the game, many call it. It's known like that. And Ryan Day versus Jim Harbaugh, JJ McCarthy versus CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud is the favorite for the Heisman winner right now.
Yep.
We've been saying it since week 1. He was our betting favorite. Other than him, it was Bryce Young. Bryce Young dropped a little throughout the season with the 2 losses. Hendon Hooker faced a torn ACL for Tennessee this past week. So I think it's CJ Stroud's Heisman for the running.
Oh, Stroud could have won it last year. They gave it to Bryce, but I mean, that was a tough call for a lot of people, and Bryce pulled it out. So yeah, Stroud certainly should win it, and yeah, you could certainly see Ohio State winning this game. I don't think Michigan's very good, but they worked very hard to win this past Saturday. That was a very tough game.
Yeah, that was a tough one. Nail biter at the end. A lot of going back and forth on both sides, and there were a lot of issues, especially you're 7 days away from the game. You know how much that means to your season and your college, university as a whole. They almost got upset last Saturday, just like that.
Yeah, exactly. It was not a pretty game, and that could hurt playoff chances ultimately.
For sure. The hottest story across New York so far in the hockey season, it's not the New York Islanders, it's not the New York Rangers, it's the New Jersey Devils. NHL's hottest team, 13 straight W's, longest winning streak in franchise history since 2001. They're doing it on both sides of the ice. Tied for second in goals allowed, and both shots on goals, first in the league. So they're doing on defense, offense, name it. They're hitting on all cylinders.
This has been building. They've had these pieces for years. It just hasn't clicked. Nico Hischier, what's his name? Oh, they finally have a goaltender. They just have all the pieces, and it's finally clicked. And I mean, I don't think people expected this. I mean, you think back 2001, that was when they were in their heyday. And there's a franchise that they have one playoff appearance in 10 years after a 20-year run of excellence. So, they've earned this. They really – Jack Hughes was the player I was thinking of, number 86.
Oh, there you
go. I mean, they're phenomenal. I just wonder how long. It's funny. Our guest, Greg, went to last night's game. We were talking about afterward, and it's like, they probably are going to cool off. And, I mean, that division is brutal. You got to hold off the Rangers. You got to hold off the Islanders. Pittsburgh is always there, Washington. So, I mean, it's going to be hard for the whole division. But if they make a playoff spot this year, it's not going to be a one-off like the last time they made it in 2018. This team could have the makings. I don't know if it was a 20-year run of glory, but it could be like the 90s again over there.
And it's always a pleasure to see. We see it in Yankee Stadium all the time because it's the Yankees. We see it with the Knicks because it's the Knicks. Yeah. But there's Devil fans selling out that arena now. You finally have a good product on the ice. Exactly. They're selling tickets. They're buying tickets game by game. It doesn't matter who's coming into town. It could be the worst team in the league. Sold out crowds. If not, bare minimum, they're full.
That's a dedicated fan base, and I think the move to Newark hurt them ultimately. And it was a bad mix. I mean, when they started Newark, they were still in those glory years, and they drew. But then when it got bad, people said, yeah, we don't have to go to Newark. Can't blame them there. And, now that they're good, they're coming. And, I mean, I would hope maybe in future years they explore maybe going back to the Meadowlands. I mean, that's the most misunderstood fan base in sports, that was like a football atmosphere before games. People would be out there tailgating. There's a reason their parades were in the parking lots, even though people made fun of them for it. They knew that fan base. And that's a perfect example of bad ownership. That team was traded hands so many times. And, you hope that, I don't know if this ownership group or whatever, maybe it will be. If this is the group that gets them back on that track, so be it. But yeah, all the, Larry Brooks were on the post. Good to have them back.
Great to have them back. And we'll have Howie Carpet on the show soon to talk more hockey. Rangers, Islanders, Devils, you name it, he knows it.
Oh, yeah. Many books by Howie on the Rangers for sure.
Along with his scorekeeping, he's teaching me every time he's on this show, every time in the press box. I always appreciate it.
Yeah.
But as we wrap up the show, we hit on every note. Soccer, football, our interview with Greg Harinya, great interview. Baseball we hit on. We went back and forth with baseball. That was great.
That was
Our
all
betting,
fun. Yeah.
our betting picks, our college football picks, along not just our picks, but our information and previews for Ohio State, Michigan. And this has been a great show. I enjoyed all the time we had together. I appreciate you guys watching throughout the course of the 2 hours. Thank you to Jason for co-hosting with me. And thank
My
you to
pleasure.
Avery. Thank you to Avery for producing. Always appreciate that. And as always, we're going to be back on Tuesday night, 8 p.m. on the SLG Network. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Any last thoughts, Jason?
No, that's pretty much it. I think we covered everything. Happy Thanksgiving, Robert.
Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you. As always, follow me on social media. Follow me on Twitter, RobertRiz994. Follow me on Facebook, Robert Rizzo. Instagram, rrizzo4. Follow Rich Mancuso at the labels provided below. Rich Mancuso will be back next Tuesday. As always, full head of energy, talking boxing, a bunch of sports. And as always, I end the show every week saying the same thing. Keep it in the ring.
Father.